G'day, folks. It's the Maple Monkey here with another live stream for you, and we're moving away from Marvel United today because we have a wonderful guest here, and we're going to be discussing a fantastic TV show that we've both enjoyed, or I assume we've both still enjoyed watching it. We have Andrew Fantasia here. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And we're talking Arcane today. So Arcane season 1, we had a chat a few weeks ago, I think.
About 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, a show that sort of popped up actually a few years ago, about 3 years ago or so. And then the second season dropped just recently, and I was blown away. Like, I really liked the first season, but I was just absolutely blown away by the second season. I was like, I have to chat with someone about this. And I was like, who do I know that likes shows and talking about media and stuff like that? I was like, oh, I know Andrew Fantasia. So so we had a good chat, and you have subsequently, in the meantime, you've watched season 2. Yes, that's correct. All of season 2. G'day, Sin. How you going? Welcome.
Hi, Sin.
Yeah, and we're both wearing our Christmas hats. So before we dive in too much into Arcane at the moment, I'm just going to briefly take a little off ramp into Marvel United, just to remind folks that I've got. If I keep him in front of me, I think he shouldn't disappear. There we go. This is the Santa Claus model made by Minis from Mars, Etsy store, a good friend of the channel as well here. And so this model is for Marvel United, and he's a great little model. And also there's been a homebrew character made up for him by Minis from Mars, and you can order either just the model separately, or you can order the model plus the cards and stuff for the homebrew battle. He's a lot of fun. So I've put a link to the competition where you can win one of 2 copies of the model and the play set by entering a Google form. So I've put that in the description of this video, and this will probably be like the last chance, essentially, because I will be hosting one last live stream tonight, which is Christmas Eve my time, but I guess it'll be the morning of New Christmas Eve for you guys.
That's right.
In the States, that is, and I think also about maybe midday-ish for the I'm not sure what time it is, but for UK folks. Lee, you probably be able to tell us if I do it tonight. But anyway, so basically this is kind of like it's getting close to the last chance to enter that competition, and I'll be doing the draw later on tonight, my time sort of thing. So just thought I'd let folks know that that's coming up. We have a fairly good amount of people have already entered there sort of thing too, so plenty of people have jumped on board that. But I just thought, just in case anyone else has missed it, they can jump in on that as well. 24th for me already. Just Sin.
So Sin must be Eastern Hemisphere then. He must be
Yeah. So Sin, I think you're in the UK, right? So it's 24th for me here. It's about mid. Is that right? I don't know. I'm totally confused. It is the 24th here, right? Yep. Okay. I'm looking at I'm like, wait, should I be downstairs unwrapping presents with my kids?
They're like, sorry, Dad, where are
you? Yeah, all good. But whenever people post sorry, Sen, so this is very good, but my brain, like whenever you post that thing and you go like plus 11 hours ahead of the UK, my brain goes brrr and melts out my ears and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I have to look at the clock, like on your phone, the app, and it so I can see that, and I just go, what time is it there? Like, just tell me what time it is, so I don't have to do the maths. So yeah, awesome. But thank you for posting that, because anyone who has an ability to do maths, that would be very helpful for them. So, but yes, excellent. Okay. Well, but let's, okay, so that's all good. Very cool model. But let's dive back into our discussion about Arcane. So, Andrew, you had myself sort of contact you and say, hey, have you seen this Arcane show? And I think you'd had some students also like recommend the show to you a little while ago, and so you jumped on board and you watched the first season, and I think fairly safe to say you enjoyed that season.
Yeah, very much.
Excellent. And before we get into, I guess, your overall thoughts on this season, I'll just see if I can find my note. Here we go. Find my notes here. All right. You also made some predictions, I believe.
Yeah.
You did. Now I've got them written down here very neatly. Can you see? Ooh. I don't know if you can see. Oh, look at those predictions there. Very, very messy because I was just scrolling them down. But all right, so one was more like a wish. Your first one was less of a prediction, but one. So you wanted to see more of what magic could do. You wanted to see more than just like, oh, let's tinker with some stuff and then it explodes. You wanted to see it do some particular things, or maybe some more identifiable actions or whatever, rather than just a generic explosion sort of thing.
Right.
Was that a fair? Is that a fair description of what you said?
Totally.
Always,
yeah. Some more variety instead of just variety. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Which I'm not sure. I mean, in a sense, we got a little bit of that, but also, even what we did get was still, I think, variations on boom. I think.
They could have called the show that variations on boom.
Variation on boom. Yeah, a little tagline instead of like Arcane League of Legends, Arcane variations on boom. Maybe that'll be second season. Well, not season, but future iterations and stuff. I think you said you wanted Echo to assume a position of authority, maybe even like in Piltover, guided by Heimerdinger. So you wanted to see that combo rise to, be able to maybe have a big impact and in a position to rule and stuff. I guess a bit like spoilers here for anyone who hasn't seen Game of Thrones all the way through the TV show. So if you don't want to have any spoilers on Game of Thrones, kind of like we had a young character sort of in charge at the end.
Totally.
Of that. Yep. And someone who seems like they would be, at least at the beginning, would be doing things in an altruistic sense and making good choices rather than selfish choices and that sort of thing. And then you said you thought that Jinx would successfully save her friends this time. She'd get a do-over, but that Vi would die to save her. So those were your predictions. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, interesting. Okay. Cool. What about before we get into big, also not big spoiler, but before we get in, and by the way, spoiler alert, like the last chat we had, we're basically sort of going to give our impressions on the season, but that will also entail sort of going through and talking about plot points and story points and just favorite moments and all sorts of stuff. Episode by episode is how I assume this is going to go. So for folks who haven't watched it, hopefully you've already decided that you don't want to watch the rest of this video and have ducked out, or and go and watch it first before coming back, or hopefully you maybe just sort of, this sounds like an interesting topic, but you're not super keen on going and watching and worrying about spoilers and stuff. So because we will be getting into that, but how about season 2? Just general impressions, Andrew. What can you tell us about this one?
So I think overall, I ended up kind of the flip of how you felt. I ended up with a season 1 that I really loved, and then a season 2 that I just kind of liked.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It kind of flipped it on me, and I don't think that's the show's fault. I think it's more my fault because for whatever reason, maybe I was just blinking at the wrong times, but when we got to the finale and we get to that big confrontation where Mel's mom is storming the keep with her soldiers, and I'm watching and I'm enjoying what I'm watching, but I'm also like thinking to myself, I have no idea what anybody wants right now. I couldn't remember for the life of me the key motivations for why this battle is taking place, who wants what, and how they're trying to get it. I know that they're trying to survive in the battle, and that was that was a great battle. But the personal motivations, I must have just totally blanked out. And again, I'm not blaming the show, really. I'm more blaming me for just kind of like, wait, what? Something must have just gone over my head. But it didn't stop me from enjoying the show. It just stopped me from loving it the way I was really liking what season 1 was doing.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And actually, it's interesting because I think I've seen, even though I didn't necessarily agree with them from my own personal like enjoyment of the show, I think I saw a lot of reactions to this show in that I think going through the show and following social media and everything, I think going through this season, I think people were, from what I got the sense of, people were absolutely loving it. But that third arc, I think, created a bit of a split where some people loved it and some people liked it, but found some problems. And I can see, as much as I loved it, I can see the points of view. I can see the points that people were making, and yeah, like like that last part. Like even in some of my notes and stuff, I think it might come up with some of the things that maybe you came up with there. And I think it's like you say, it's it's probably your fault that you didn't sort of pick up on some of those motivations and stuff. But I think regardless of whether we want to say it's the fault of the show or not, I think obviously there's been some sort of failure in the story writers to connect with you, and I guess really realistically we have to sort of like take responsibility ourselves, but also the show has responsibility. It's like a joint thing, right? You kind of got to meet in the middle, and I guess there's been obviously some sort of gap in the show writers there for you, and that sort of thing as well. And to be honest, as much as I loved it, if you asked me to give a detailed essay on all the motivations of the characters, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But I don't know, but I'm enjoying it. So
yeah, exactly. Like some movies are like that too, where it's just, this is more about the vibes than what is actually happening in the plot. And Sin Arcane brings up a great question in the chat that I think it's fair to shed some light on, because Sin's asking, was it maybe because I had a certain expectation in my head and it wasn't delivered? And I tend to go into everything I watch without any of those expectations, because I know how ruinous they can be on an experience. So I had predictions, sure, but definitely no expectations. And I just kind of wanted to go in and let it wash over me and just have fun with the story. And all the things that I deep down really wanted to see, I got them. I got lots more magic. I got lots more world building. I got to spend more time with these characters and see them grow, particularly Vi and Jinx, because that was my favorite relationship in this whole thing. So whatever tiny expectations or wants that I had, I actually did get them from the show. So there was no disappointment there whatsoever, even though I tried to just go in as a clean slate.
And I think for me, the main story, I think one of the reasons I really loved it was the main story. And I hesitate to even say this was the main story, but the impression I get is if you're talking about what's the main story of the show, I think it ends up being more about the story of the two cities, the story of the world, the story of everything kind of leads to conflict, everything kind of leads to war, as much as we try not to, or something around those lines. I think the main story, especially in that last arc, ends up kind of being a bit more of a zoomed out, looking at the whole ensemble of the characters, right? Which, fair enough, because it's a pretty big ensemble story, right? Ensemble cast. But I think for me, this show and this story has always been the thing that I'm attached to, the thing that I really cared about was the Jinx, Vi, that family relationship, them plus their sort of extended sort of family of those sort of underworld characters and how they sort of interacted and stuff. And so I think this season gave me, more and a great follow-up to that story and everything from the first season. And so for me, I think that's what, as long as it gave me that, whether or not the rest of it landed at the end was sort of almost like a afterthought for me. Just the other stuff was more important. So So by the way, feel free, Sin, and others who join us in this chat, feel free to pop in with your own thoughts and expectations and what landed for you and that sort of stuff as we go through as well, as we discuss our ins and outs of the show and stuff. But yeah, so oh, holy moly, it was a ride though. It was an emotional ride, you know, and starting because we talked about, I think in the last episode, about how cliffhangery, how just like bam, we just end with that rocket going through the window. And that's it. And then we wait 3 years, right? Or in the case of Andrew, maybe a week or two, of, you know, what's the aftermath of that. And that's where we sort of start with that sort of thing. So do you want to talk about we were both chatting off air sort of thing, saying how we kind of didn't take as many detailed notes for these first few episodes sort of thing, but is there anything I've got a couple of things I guess I could say, but that first episode, or even just the first arc, I think that's how we kind of did it last time. We sort of focused on the arcs, but maybe sort of talked through them in sequence sort of thing. But yeah, anything that stood out or anything you want to say about that first arc or first episode, Andrew?
Well, in terms of the first arc, it really, I think it did an awesome job of setting the stage for this new world, and just the state of everything, giving us that cool speech that they have in Piltover where that attack gets orchestrated on them. That really helped set the vibes. I'm probably going to use that word a lot during the series,
vibes. No, absolutely.
It did help set the vibes for the season and just what we can expect, the unrest going on, how the whole martial law thing became even more of an issue. And if I remember right, the first arc is the arc that ends with Caitlin being made sort of the head of the guards, right? Where everybody's like, yeah, let's go, Caitlin. You're our guard lady now. It was a bit more profound than how I'm making it sound. But they fully declared the martial law, and Caitlin became commander in chief, as it says here on I got Wikipedia open on a different tab here, and they ended every episode showing a little bit of this mad scientist guy we kind of don't see what's going on, but he's making something, which we find out later.
Yes, yeah. That was very sort of like mysterious. It was because it was almost like you had your satisfying end to each thingy, and then it was like just a little thing they'd throw in, almost something you would expect to pop up at the end of credits, like a little end credit scene. And it really seemed kind of disconnected to what else was going on, and it was like, what is this? And you almost, because it's so disconnected and it's this little thing thrown at the end of each one, you kind of forget about it until the end of each episode sort of thing. You're like, what's that? And boy, is that when it does reveal what that's all about, man, is that an impactful thing on the season as well. And I think that's one of the things that fans of the game would have been very excited by, that because they probably would have known what those little hints were leading to, because that is a character in the video game as well. I don't think it's the same character as such. Like, I don't think the backstory of that character is the same, but you know, a big abomination type werewolfy looking thing is a character in the game sort of thing. So I think they would have kind of had a sense of what was coming there with that character, but maybe not how it comes about, what the backstory is sort of thing as well. So but yeah, you know, like it sort of it was one of the first sort of ends of an arc from the last season to this one where I feel like it didn't do a big time skip. Like it was like an immediate aftermath of that, because we see the aftermath of everyone in that room, you know, which characters have been killed, which characters have somehow survived.
And I was really bummed that Star Wars robot-y guy died.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, I wanted to see more of what he was about and stuff. So, damn you, Jinx. But also, I mean, wasn't that the just epitome of like what if that last scene of the last episode where they're all one by one, you know, they're voting for peace, they're voting for collaboration, we're going to get the perfect ending where everybody's happy, you know, sort of, and just chaotic, just for no particular reason, just on a whim, fires a rocket into the
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
I guess you
beautiful.
don't say for no reason. Like she'd been pushed to that point, right? And
Uh-huh.
it was definitely unhinged, but a very random act in a sense, and just yeah, just it's like, well, here we go again. We could have had nice things, but now we're gonna
Oh,
have to see what And well, I don't want to get too political, but I feel like we might be about to enter a period like that ourselves. But so let's
yep.
let's go that way. But yeah, so just it just like perfect setting for like, okay, now we're gonna, like, you thought that story was great, like let's ramp things up again, and like you said, set that world of like the unrest grows and the and that sort of thing. And I couldn't remember looking back at this if that thumping of the chest sort of scene where she like is nominated for martial law. I couldn't remember if that was the end of the first episode or end of the arc. And I think you're right. I think it's at the end of the arc, isn't it? Because to skip ahead a little bit, Jinx succeeds in kind of like launching that bomb that fires all the colorful smoke clouds up as a bit of like a, apologies to folks at home, but as a bit of a, the upper class sort of thing. And that's where they kind of like, no, this is enough, where, we're going to really clamp down on them. And but we get like, the other thing too is, we get that, they're all kind of reeling from this, but they're trying to make the right decisions. Like Vi and Caitlin, we see that they're together. And so we get in this first arc, we get that sort of like, okay, the relationship that sort of just starts in the first season between Vi and Caitlin strengthens, but they're struggling with the aftermath of, obviously, Caitlin's mother has been killed. And so, but she's trying to do the right thing and think of Vi as well, and know that, like, to take down Jinx would be to, to hurt Vi, and Vi's, asking her not to change and all that sort of stuff. But then we get, and so they try to, not overreact. They try to sort of, have that, just the memorial type thing of, and try to sort of, put the right foot forward and that sort of thing. And the Undercity double down and like attack them in that moment of vulnerability, in that moment of reflection sort of thing. But we find out later, that it's all engineered by, really, you could say almost the real villain of the whole story, in a sense, in Ambessa, who's basically paid the Undercity goons to come and attack that thing just so she can get her claws into the people in power, there, sort of thing. But that was a really cool, in terms of, like, we can talk about all the nuanced story, but sometimes we just have to talk about the exciting battle scenes and stuff like that. And that first episode with that fight scene was really cool, and a good showcase. I believe there are some characters there from the game as well that I think the lady with the big giant chainsaw who fights Jace and stuff, I think she's maybe a character in the game, and that sort of thing. So getting to have these little moments that are little sort of like shout outs to the fans of the game and stuff, that was cool as well. But also, I had forgotten who she was. I forgot that character with the chainsaw was the mother. She was like one of the gang leaders from the first season, and she was really angry because Jace kind of kills her son when he goes on that mission to stamp out crime down in the Undercity, and that little boy that kind of gets in the way, who's working for the goons, that's her son. So that's why she had that real vengeance for had it out for Jace, sort of thing. And I'd missed that until I went back and watched the first season. I was like, that makes, adds a little bit more juice to the the cup there. But yeah, that was cool. And I really liked in this first arc that we get to see the different squads, and it kind of reminded me of Warhammer 40,000. There was this game called Necromunda where you had all these gangs and stuff, and I really liked all the little thematic different gangs.
Yes.
Especially those guys kind of reminded me of like Necromunda gangs, and like mixed with Clockwork Orange sort of thing, where they had the canes, swinging the canes, and those gas mask things and the goggles and stuff, like with the bowler hats and stuff. They were a really cool faction. I really liked them. And they were like a fun faction to just basically be there to be beaten up by Jinx and show how scary Jinx is in that world and stuff as well.
Anytime there's themed gangs, it's like, you ever seen the movie The Warriors?
Yes, yeah, The Warrior, yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, that's another one. Like, like I was thinking, like, I love this vibe, and I was trying to think, what does this remind me of? And to be honest, I think Necromunda borrows a lot from the Warriors. I think they based a lot of their gangs on that stuff, sort of thing. I think they were inspired by that. So very cool. And we also get to see, like, Vi meets that that big guy that kind of looks a bit like Vander, and I think he's actually a character from the game. And then they sort of join the army together with that other the girl that kind of welcomes them, and the fish man that never says anything. But that was cool, like that little Caitlyn Death Squad sort of thing. Like, it was that was kind of a cool little side arc for Vi to go on. Your Warriors came out to play. So that was it was a fun little, like, that first arc. It's kind of set the scene of this new sort of thing, like you said, more world building, sort of like a different atmosphere in the Undercity. Definitely, like, it's starting to bubble. The tension between the two cities is getting worse and worse, really sort of bubbling over, sort of thing. And the Vi joining the Enforcers kind of leads to that big sort of moment at the end, I think, where we have that big showdown between Jinx and Vi, with Caitlyn there. Savika, I like Savika's arm too. I like how she gets that cool, like, random arm built for her by Jinx. It seems like it would be more of a problem in a fight than a benefit. You never know what to do. You can't plan for anything. But that was a great fight, sort of thing. But also, I like how they had that coincide with, they do this a lot, where they have some sort of big moment and it's coinciding with something else happening, or it's just, the play back and forth. They do that really well. And with that scene where Heimerdinger and Echo, which I love, and I feel like we didn't really get exactly what you wanted with these guys, because of sort of what happened. But the stuff we did get with them was fun, like where he's doing his little ninja mission, where he's running along and Echo's just kind of walking along going, well, what are you doing, sort of thing. And he's like doing all the commando moves and stuff, which was pretty cool. But that scene where they're in the big core center, or whatever it's called, the mainframe or whatever, and they just kind of like touch the wrong thing or whatever, and just everything kind of just weirds out on them. Such a, like, what the scene, and then they just kind of like poof, disappear, which is again another variation on magic, boom. So that was a really cool sort of like, whoa, what's going to happen sort of moment with that. And I like how it coincided with the big fight with Vi and Jinx. But also in this arc, what did you think of, like, Jinx meeting, I think her name was Isha or Aisha?
Isha was such a wonderful, fantastic character. And it's a perfect thing to put into Jinx's hands, is just, here's this innocent young life, which this was you once upon a time. What are you going to do when this is in your responsibility now? And to see her, it was awesome how they chose to make the character mute. Because Jinx is such a talker. Even though she's violent, she blows stuff up, she also loves to talk her way out of things. And to have somebody that she can't talk back with, it almost like takes away a bit of Jinx's power and makes her have to rely on different ways to think. So, and I think we kind of see her realize when she's spending time alone with Isha, we see Jinx yakking away, and we can kind of see it on her face as she's realizing, like, my talking isn't really doing me any favors right now. This is I can't deal with her the way I deal with literally everybody else. And that's so cool to me. And to give her that sidekick and now have somebody she's responsible for. It puts her in Vi's position. I love the whole Isha thing.
Beautiful. And timed beautifully, all right? Like after what had just happened, to insert her into the story now. Great. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, that's a great thought. Like, because I was like going back in my mind as you were saying it, and I'm picturing all those moments where she's talking to her, and the thing that stands out is the look on Jinx's face as she realizes, like, oh, this is, you know, like she's proving me wrong with her silence, or she's making me rethink what I'm saying. You know, it really disarmed her. You know, like you said, took away part of her repertoire, sort of thing, of like, I'm just going to zanily talk through this sort of stuff. She had to really sort of go in. She kind of had to force to sort of self-reflect, and so that was and lots of beautiful, nice little moment, and a perfect way to start building up hope in us again. Start, you know, building up positives and like give us more, because it's such a devastating ending of the first season, and things just sort of bad for everyone again. It almost feels like the end of the first arc in season 1 again, like, oh, you know, what's going to happen? And this kind of gives us like, oh no, okay, things were bad, but now it's like you said, you thought Jinx was going to get that opportunity to redeem herself, and this time things are going to go right. And it's like, oh, okay, so like, the story really is going to be about Isha, and like, this is our redemption arc. This is how you know, the characters of the future get to, you know, like you were saying, maybe Echo will be on top of the pyramid of power, and he'll be able to sort of like lead us into the future and stuff like that. And maybe, you know, things will go all right for Isha, will benefit, you know, she'll be a character that benefits from the new world that we get, sort of thing. And this show doesn't like to give us what we want. But it, you know, at this point though, it was like, oh, like, nice, okay, awesome, you know, like, yes, things have gone bad, but okay, I can see a path forward, sort of thing. And then we get the second arc. And then we get episodes 4, 5, and 6. And I've got these are where most of my notes are in. Episode 4, 5, and 6. Just man, it just doesn't let us be happy for very long, does it? So,
no, it does not.
But I think this is the thing. I'm glutton for punishment here, because like, this was the arc. Like, I enjoyed that first season. I enjoyed the first arc of this one, and I just loved the pummeling that this is where these episodes is where I was like, I have to talk to Andrew about this. Like, I just, holy moly, these ones. Like, so I've got lots of stuff to say here, but I don't want to sort of hijack the whole conversation. So what were your thoughts on this arc, or these episodes?
Oh boy. Well, I think that first of all, oh boy, where do I even begin?
Right. I mean, if you get stuck, I've got lots of stuff to say here too. So
okay, I think the one of my biggest takeaways of this arc is something that I love to see in any story where there is a clear-cut, really bad villain, right? Like just an evil, nasty villain. Something I really love to see is when that villain has an equally nasty henchman that's really hard to take out. And
yes,
we get Mr. Zangief over here.
Oh mate, Zangief. I want to say Richter.
I think you're right. Richter or Rictus.
Rictus. Rictus. Yeah, you're right. No,
yeah.
Rictus. Yeah. That was teamwork. I came up with the first syllable, and you brought us home with the last syllable. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a ton of fun. And you know, at first when you keep seeing him in Ambessa's orbit there, and there is something kind of noble and quiet about him, and you're like, oh, this guy's all right, this guy's cool. And then the more you see of him, the more you're like, oh no, he's a dirty henchman. He's just in it to win it. And you know that confrontation is going to happen, and you see how imposing this guy is, and you know, like, oh man, that's going to be It's gonna be a fight. It's
Yeah.
like every time you watch a great James Bond movie and you see, you know, Odd Job shows up, and you're like, that's gonna be great one. Yeah. So I was like, I'm tracking this guy throughout this whole second season, and I'm like, this is gonna be good. When's Zangief gonna cut loose? Because it's gonna be good, and it did not disappoint.
No, yeah. And I feel like he had several moments throughout the series to shine, sort of thing, where it's like, yeah, you get to see how powerful he is, sort of thing. Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah, like I think we had, and this was another case of another well done time skip, I think, you know, because I think a little bit of time has passed since Jinx and Vi's sort of Caitlyn and Vi's like failed trip into try and take down Jinx.
Yes.
And we see that's ended up because of how that went, and how Caitlyn kind of refused to back down, even when Vi was like, there's a kid here, like, what are you doing, sort of thing. That kind of has driven them apart. And we see that there's a bit of a vacuum now, because at the end of the first, and we didn't even, again, all these characters we failed to discuss, like we didn't even really talk much about Jace and the guys and Mel and stuff in the first season, but we it was, I'm trying to think, actually, no, hold on, when did Mel disappear?
I think in the first arc she gets taken away.
So in that first arc, they must introduce the idea of the Black Rose being the thing that's kind of like, what's really driven Ambessa here? Like, why is she here? And we sort of find out, oh no, she's kind of like almost on the run, or like trying to find a way to sort of deal with that as well.
Yes, and the Black Rose is actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that. That was something that it simultaneously gave me something I really wanted, and at the same time, it was one of the things that ended up kind of making me scratch my head when all was said and done, because it was this thing where it's like, here's some other stuff magic can do, and I'm like, whoa, look at all these thorns, and like they're like stealing people with just like, you get enveloped in this dark red and then you vanish. I'm like, this is awesome, like sign me up. But as we got into the end of the whole series, I'm trying to look back. I'm like, okay, they're looking for Ambessa. Something about her having a kid, or being a kid of the Black Rose or something. And then that was sort of like where I'm just like, wait, where, who, what? That really kind of, and the idea of Mel learning this information when she's in that pit, and then just getting swallowed by the darkness again, and then pushing back and being like, no, I can do this too now. I felt like I was missing something. I feel like somebody must have said a line of dialogue at some point that went over my head that makes sense of that, because I was just like, wait, why is this happening to Mel, and why does her mother, why do these people want her mother dead? I'm assuming Mel, and I had to, this was just thinking that I had to do after the fact, because in the moment I wasn't sure, but I assumed afterwards that Ambessa wanted the hex tech at the end of the day, because she thought that was her only defense against Black Rose.
Yeah, I think so. I think I must admit, again, it was one of the things I was kind of like, I kind of think I understand, like, okay, Black Rose bad, has to be defeated. Like, I was like, okay, and Ambessa doesn't like Black Rose, that's where we're at, sort of thing. But I've got the benefit of, I was able to go back, because I sort of rewrote season 1 and 2 again. I just kind of skipped through a lot of it though, but I did catch some more of the Black Rose stuff. But again, I still don't think I've got a full grasp on it. But my general gist of it is, I think that it's like, so Ambessa had an entanglement with the Black Rose, where one of her kids was born to someone of the Black Rose, so therefore this child was going to have Black Rose powers, like from genetically was going to be born a wizard, sort of thing. And because of the ruthless warmonger that she is, she's somehow double crossed the Black Rose, or fell out of was no longer together with the Black Rose, sort of thing, hid the fact that she had a child or something with the Black Rose. The Black Rose discovered, basically kidnapped and killed her son because they thought the son was the child. And maybe I'm not quite sure whether Ambessa kind of like sacrificed the son or not, like, you know, gave the son up to them or not, or whatever, or if he just sort of stumbled into the plot or whatever. And but yeah, she discovered that the Black Rose were coming after them, and so, like you said, I think therefore she was looking for any sort of and you know, she's a very practical, pragmatic, you know, she was just looking for a weapon, looking for anything she could get to fight them off, because she knew that like war, like just her martial prowess wasn't going to be enough. So she was looking at the hex tech as a way. So she wanted to gain control of that, and potentially gain control of Mel, if she sort of thought that Mel could be a powerful wizard to use against them, maybe. I think she did still care for Mel, like she wanted to protect Mel from and keep the Black Rose from getting to Mel, I think, but probably more about gaining control of the hex tech. And then I think so Mel's powers awoke when that missile came in, and that's what protected some of the people in that room. She made a force bubble around them, and that's how Jace and her and some of them survived. So that awokened the powers in Mel, and then Mel's powers awoke even more when she had to fight her way out of the Black Rose. All the people watching this are like, that's not what happened at all. But I think that's right. So she's always seemed to have a bit of a distrustful relationship with her mother. She's always been a bit of a kind of a softy, kind of a, you know, she's still a bit of a, like, she's cunning, but she doesn't believe in being totally ruthless. So I think when she realized this and what had happened, and she sort of like probably blamed her mum and saw that her mum was really just out to get the hex tech, may have been complicit in just allowing her son, you know, the brother, to get kidnapped or whatever. Came back with this newfound power and was prepared to use it to protect the people she loved, rather, you know, than specifically aligning with her mum or the Black Rose sort of thing, and decided to go her own way, I think, ish, sort of thing. But we'll come back to that at the end too, with the final thoughts and stuff as well. But we had that sort of thing, and so we had this time skip that, you know, in episode 4 sort of opens with, we see that it's like time has passed since then. It has, Caitlin is in this position of power. We see that the Piltover's been like enforcing, like basically just sort of like almost setting up like checkpoints and all this sort of stuff, and there's no freedom of movement with the people in Zorn and that sort of stuff. We see that obviously there's been a split with Vi and Caitlin, and we see that, I think it's Maddie,
the red-haired girl, position. Right?
And she talk about like the stepdad, sort of like the person we're set up to hate, you know, when it's Jim Carrey, and he's this lovable rogue guy that has the wife that he's estranged from, and like the stepdad's moved in. Like they always have and they're always like a nice sort of, you know what I mean? Like they always have to be just like a nice, bland, nothing sort of character, and we, you know, not offensive at all, but we just hate them because they're not, you know, they're not Vi sort of thing. And I was watching this with Lecky, and she turned to me and she's like, there's something irritating about this girl. I just don't like her, sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't think we necessarily have that feeling about her in the first arc, where she's just this friendly character that sort of welcomes Vi onto the team, sort of thing. But it's when we see her in Caitlin's bed that we're like, what are you doing there?
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of thing. And she's just being supportive, and she's just, you know, there to support Caitlin, sort of thing. But yeah, we don't like that. The world has shifted. Jinx is like this folklore hero that she didn't really want to be, sort of thing. And I think Ambessa's I think her ruthlessness actually is revealed in like the montage bit at the end, where there's like the thumping of the chest. We see that, it was her that set everything up, and therefore this whole thing, she's put Caitlin in power, but really she's put herself in power. But we see more that we see now through her scenes in this, especially this first episode, she's going in and twisting Caitlin's, like she's steering her back on course of where she wants her to be, couching in ways of like, oh, it's all your choice, and even Maddie is saying things like, oh, you know, you should do what you want to do, don't worry about Ambessa, sort of thing. But it's all in a way to sort of make her do what Ambessa sort of wants to do, sort of thing, because of what we find out later about Maddie as well. And I like that like she clearly sort of becomes, I guess, one of two main villains of this whole series, right? Ambessa. But again, we may not agree with it, but we are still given, she's still human. She's still like, we see her motivations. We see her in her talking to talking to Vi. Her ruthlessness is revealed, but we also see the paranoia. We see, I get a feeling that she's talking to Caitlin in these episodes, but she's almost like talking to Mel because Mel's not there, so it's almost like you can see her motherly instincts, you know, what little they are in that whole, like, just trying to prepare someone for battle and that sort of thing. That's an interesting sort of thing as well. Like, she's not just totally just an evil bad guy. Like, there is some humanity there. It's very selfish and very pragmatic and stuff, but yeah, that's a cool sort of thing. And
yeah, she wants her wolf. She wants to train her wolf.
Yeah. And so it's fun watching the manipulation going on there, and yet still seeing signs of humanity where you can see she kind of like, she's manipulating, but she knows she kind of like, it's almost, it's an interesting little play. It's not a total sort of thing. What did you think of Savika in this one too? Like in this arc, like
she kind of stepped up as a cool like secondary character, as well, because she was kind of playing henchwoman for Silco for pretty much all of season 1, I think. And I didn't expect her back. I remember when she popped up in season 2, I'm like, oh yeah, she lived. All right, let's see where she ends up. And I thought she had a really cool, just sort of low key story throughout. That she for whatever she was there for, her presence was a nice through line, because it kind of reminded me subconsciously of just where we started and where we're ending up.
And I love, that's another thing I love about this show, is that there's a lot of characters like that who in any other thing would maybe be that's all they are, it's just a secondary character. But this show does a great job of like repeatedly bringing back what start out as maybe seemingly secondary characters, but keep bringing them back and in interesting ways, and even little minor characters like that get story arcs and stuff like that. Like even the little sort of like guy with the glasses who's kind of like a little sort of one bit sort of like criminal. He's kind of like, like I don't know what he is, like a trader or broker or something like that. But then he catches the pox or whatever, and then he gets healed by, even that little guy has a bit of a story, and he sort of keeps coming back. Interesting sort of thing. And with Savika, we kind of almost get that storyline that you kind of wanted for Echo, where she does kind of end up in like that position of power sort of thing.
That's true.
It's like, well, okay, she starts out the ruthless sort of henchman, and she's not necessarily the person you would want there, but maybe she's kind of like, she's got more practicality in her. Maybe she is a good person for that job. maybe Echo is just too altruistic. He might make not very great governing decisions, because
that's a great point.
Where she might make, so that's an interesting thing. And what a, like, talk about shows that have these redemption arcs for villains, right? Because she's just someone at the beginning, like, you just like, oh, she betrayed Vander, and she's like the second henchman for Silco, and maybe if she hadn't been there, maybe things would have turned out better for Vi and the gang at that fight in the first arc and all that sort of stuff. And then she's such a strong supporter of Silco, who we're kind of not on the side of. So yeah, you sort of, she's not one that you would expect to be rooting for. And it's like Jinx, like, so many times I know we're supposed to root for Jinx, but she's done so much murdering and stuff, especially in that first season. And, that I'm like, I know we're supposed to have a redemption arc for her, but, I don't necessarily want to just be like, oh yeah, I'm totally on board with Jinx, because she's done some horrible things, but it's just such a good show of making all of these characters human, and you understand the whys of what they do, even if you don't agree with it, sort of thing. And I think Savika's an interesting one there, and she really like steps up, and you see her trying to be a leader, and it's really interesting. She gets to that point where she is a leader, but initially she's not very good at it, and she's trying to make speeches and stuff, but it doesn't quite work, and she kind of gets a bit of a boost from I think it's Isha at that rally sort of thing, that actually pretending to be Jinx and stuff like that sort of gets the crowd going and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a fun sort of thing too. We get and I've said this episode 4 for me gave me a great insight into the motivations of characters, and I think potentially at the end you might be right. I think we kind of, because of how things change and the stakes change, I think that's where we tend to lose. I think at this point in the story, it's a lot more clear what motivations the characters have and stuff. And I think that because the story almost really changes a bit, almost like what it's all about at the end, I think that's where motivations kind of like
everything gets blurry.
Wishy-washy, gets blurry. Yeah, yeah. But I think at this point, I really appreciated. I felt like I knew what all the motivations of characters were, and I thought this episode in particular did a good job with that. And another great thing I think the first episode of this arc does, episode 4, is it leaves out Vi completely. She's not there. I don't think we see her at all. I don't think we see her at all. And so that allows characters like Savika to come more to the front. It allows us to see more of Jinx and what her relationship with Isha's becoming. We get to see more of that sort of stuff. We get to see the Caitlyn and Ambessa sort of stuff. And we get the fun team up of Jinx and, I love all the team ups in this show of Jinx and Savika, where they sort of do the jailbreak sort of thing as well. And Jinx, and this is where I've written, what I talked about before in that last one, we get the hope building, like Jinx is even more, we're getting more hope about, her and Isha, and she's getting that respect and that sort of thing. And then I can't believe it's the whole, did this all happen in this first episode? Like they had the reveal of what that, or more of a reveal of what that monster was, and then they all get put in prison, and the jailbreak all happens in this episode. Is that?
You're right, because it ends with Vander saying her name.
Yeah, saying powder or something like that. And
so all of that, and with the guy spilling his blood and leaving the trail, that's all in here. Yeah, this was
that's a huge episode. Yeah, that's and I mean, what a great, like, that whole thing of like, him dropping the blood even in the city, and then they all get taken to the jail, and then they have the fun jailbreak and stuff. But then there's this thing that's kind of it's almost like chasing the story. Like we get the story going, and this thing just keep coming back to this thing, getting closer, and it's terrifying. It's like that. It was a really scary scene, and it was like really scary seeing the power of Ambessa just being like, you see like her getting ready. She knows something bad's coming, and like that thing just like the ominous, like, something thumping in that thing and it coming out, and then and we get the brief moment. So this show does it all the time. The brief moment of like, oh, they've rescued Isha, and then like, whoa, what's that coming, sort of thing. And that epic fight when it comes down, it's like, what is this thing? This is crazy. Like, it's still at this point we don't really know what it has to do with the show, sort of thing, but it's just such an epic fight with Jinx fighting it and being the hero, and like her using that little, because I think it's because she's got that newfound shimmer thing, because how the doctor kind of like saves her life in the old one by kind of injecting her with shimmer or something, and so I think she kind of now has kind of shimmer speed powers or something.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and she's kind of like, that's how she's able to survive in this fight with it, because she can move at its speed and dodge out of the way, and that sort of thing, and it's such a cool fight. And then what a reveal where it says powder. Like, that's what I've written in my notes here. Like, what a reveal. I was just like, talk about, like, because we've lost hope in it, that was such an, like, and that's why I sort of wanted to talk about in the last season. I made such a big deal about how impactful that first arc was in that last episode of the first arc, and how, like, I think I will remember forever, like how I felt with that family, like those two kids losing their family and losing their relationship, all in that fateful moment with the boom, boom, and how much Vander fights at the end. Just when you think like what he does in that particular battle scene to save them and to at least give Vi that chance to escape and stuff, and he willingly like injects himself with that thing just to sort of, and is able to have that little bit of self-control to bust Vi out and that sort of thing. It was so impactful, and losing him and him having such an indelible mark on the rest of the story, but like knowing that he's essentially gone, right? We see the body, he's dead, we see him die, and then to be like, oh, he's back, like he's different, but he's back, you know, like what's it, Moana 2, where, you know, we're still together, just a little bit different or whatever, what the grandma says or something. But
I haven't seen Moana 2 yet.
Oh, well, no spoilers, but man, like I was like, so wow, like Vander's back. Oh my god, this is so good. Yeah, that was amazing. Like yeah, do you have any more thoughts on that season? On that first episode, like episode 4?
Just that the Vander reveal, it salvaged a lot of it for me, because I'm of the mind when it comes to storytelling that let dead characters stay dead, because otherwise you dilute the impact of their death. What I liked is that it ended up, you know, it's Vander, but it's not really Vander anymore. Yes. So it didn't dilute his death.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that he's around in this form made it put the ball in the court of the sisters to give them a reason to come together. And that's what I think we needed. So as soon as you hear him talk, I'm like, oh, this is great. That's perfect.
Yes.
That's exactly what the girls need. And it also helped. It just kind of made things more interesting too, because before, when we've been seeing those little snippets of the scientist, and he's making this guy, and you see him hanging from the ceiling, and even during the fight with Jinx in the jail, I was just like, whatever, it's a big guy with shimmer. We saw that all the way back in episode 1. You know, it was like, who cares? Great, just another big guy. But knowing that it's Vander, that steps things up. And suddenly I became interested, because before I was like, oh, they keep showing this monster, like we know there's shimmer monsters. That's the whole news. So having Vander there really made the stakes like go like rocket up high, and it gave us a Vi and Jinx through line to follow that we needed, because otherwise it's like, how are you getting these girls back in the same room and getting them to cooperate? And then it leads into episode 5, which has one of my favorite moments. I guess we can jump to it now, because we're pretty much there. Is the mine shaft with those mushrooms, man. That was so cool. Just visual of that.
Amazing. The visual and the soundscape of it too, because it you had the echo and stuff, and it just it created the ominous. It's like visually cool. It's like a cool little sort of thing, but it's also like, you know, and it's like, if you're heading into this thing, going into the belly of the beast, and like the only way you can see is by alerting it to your presence, like where you are, like clap. Like the number one rule is when you're sneaking through like a lair or something is don't make noise, and you have to sort of thing. So that was really cool. And I love that you said that before, because my notes for episode 5, the beginning of it really, which was linked to the last episode, which was I've written down what could possibly bring the sisters back together at this point. That's what I loved about that Vander reveal. Is like, it's like that's the only thing, right? Because they're so far apart, and it's Vander. If there's any hope that like Vander can come back, it's like that's gonna bring them together, sort of thing. And I loved that. I love. I just cannot get over like the montages in the show, and how we get the reintroduction of Vi, because we didn't see her at all, and she's got a whole new emo look, and just that music scene, and her just like drowning in just throwing herself into just getting herself beaten up, essentially, just trying to sort of like make herself numb to the world, sort of thing, getting in those boxing fights and just drinking herself to death, and she's with that guy, I can't remember his name, I think Loris or something like that, the big guy that looks like Vander. And I almost wonder, I didn't think about this, but I almost wonder if she sort of like attaches herself to him because he looks like Vander.
Could be.
But how they kind of become buddies, and then like you see it's spiraling and spiraling, and it gets to that point where he's like bringing her home every night sort of thing. But then they end up sort of like fighting, and then he sort of just is like, oh, I'm not dealing with you anymore sort of thing, and they split and stuff. And it ends with like a Jinx finds her sort of there at that, she's at the bottom, her lowest ebb sort of thing. Really cool. Just the montages tell these stories really well, like yeah, and they do it in such a stylistic and fun way. I really loved that. And the reveal, and we finally get more and a more fully fleshed out explanation in this episode 5 of the all the people in the social media call this guy, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Singed or Singed, like spelled singed. She calls him Dr. Varric or something like that, or whatever in the thing, but I think his last name or first name must be Singed or Singed, but the alchemist guy. But it gives you, we understand more about him now, like from this episode. It really explains, okay, because we know that he's trying to, we know that he sort of, I think, because Heimerdinger in the last one kind of reveals that he was like a, almost like a necromancer, that story of like, oh, the scientist who dabbles too far in the dark arts and gets booted out of the academy sort of thing. But we understand why now. It's not just he's interested in macabre shit, like he is trying to save his daughter sort of thing. So we get more of an explanation of him, and that gives him more layers and that sort of thing. But I just love how he gives just zero shits. He is just so amoral. Like they're coming in to like negotiate with him sort of thing, and he just is not intimidated by them all at all. And she's like, one of them says something to him, and he just like, she's like, how dare you, you're such a disgrace or whatever. And he's like, I rarely find anyone in power that isn't, doesn't have blood on their hands or something like that. Like he basically throws it back in their face and says, well, you guys are just as bad as me, but you just pretend to be high and mighty sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. But, but it takes Ambessa to realize what he wants and to offer it to him sort of thing. And in him, she finally finds her, because that, I think it's even in episode 4, we see her, and she's like, she's sacrificing scientists, trying to get them to be able to work out the hex tech stuff. And she's like, all the people who know how to do anything have disappeared. Like, what's going on? Sort of thing. I need to be able to control this hex tech, and everyone's disappeared. And finally, in him, she finds it, sort of thing, which is really cool. And we get. What did you think of the backs? Like, I loved getting, because the thing I love about this whole arc here is as well, it brings it back, it brings front and center back what I loved about the show in the beginning, is the relationship of the kids and Vander and Silco and that whole world. As much as I really enjoy everything else, that's the core of this story to me, and it brings it all back front and center. And we get more, like they go into that mine, that like room in the mines or whatever, and they discover like somewhere where Vander has been, and he's left a note. We get more backstory to the past of Vander and Silco when they were friends, and the kid's mum. And you can see that obviously both Silco and Vander, like, yes, they're close and they're friends, but you can kind of see that they both are like in love with this lady, even though she's married to someone else. That's the impression I got, that they were both kind of like,
yeah, there was a lot going on in that flashback.
It was, right?
And they seem to deliberately want it to be vague, which I think is a cool choice. But bringing back that relationship with Vander and Silco and their mom, it's an excellent place to put it, because at this point we've gotten so far away from episode 1. We've gotten so far away from that family just trying to survive in Zon and, rebelling against the system in a very Robin Hood-esque way. And we're so on the other side of that now. So to go back to that and be like, this is still important, guys. Look, here's Vander and Silco back in the day. And yeah, you're right. They were friends with that mom. They're very, very close with the mom, and there's definitely something there, like some kind of unrequited romance is happening, whether it's a triangle or something. And you do get the sense that Silco feels, maybe even if it's just in his own head, feels inferior to Vander. Like they have that sort of Mufasa Scar relationship where it's like, you know, I'm never gonna be as loved as you are, so I'm gonna resent you for it a little bit. There's a lot happening there, and the mom. I don't even think we learn her name, do we? Do we learn the mom's name?
I don't. If we do, I missed it in two watches. So it would be very fleeting if we do. I don't think so. I don't think we do. And hello to Von Tract as well.
Hey, Von Tract
as well. So it was it was great, and it's great to sort of remind us the stakes of what we lost, what they lost, you know, with their failed rebellion and stuff. It's but we see a lot. And what did I say here? We get Mel and the Black Rose here as well. That all like that. This is where everything I was saying before. This is kind of like the episode where we get all that reveal from the brother in the pit, sort of like giving us some exposition about what's going on. And I think for me, this is the story I think in this season that I probably felt most disconnected from. So I understand that you were saying you didn't really get, like, you know, you didn't feel like you understood it as well, sort of thing. Because I think I was just like, especially because we've got the reveal of Vander and we're getting things like Vander and Silco's backstory and stuff. When it kept cutting to this sort of stuff, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I'm not, like, get me back to, like, come on, quick, everyone save Vander, sort of thing. And you know, and Vi, we're getting to see Vi and Jinx together rather than because every point up to this, it's kind of like they've always come together. They only meet in conflict, and we're getting them in a team up as well. So we're getting to see that. So there was an element of that, plus also I just it was a little bit too esoteric, and I didn't understand it very much, but it was still cool. But it's a bit late in the piece for it to be introducing a big new plot, I think, as well at this point in the story. It's a bit like when I was reading the Game of Thrones books. You know, you read the first 3 or whatever, and then I think a lot of people get turned off in the 4th book because we start introducing all the Dawn stuff and stuff like that, and it just kind of feels like, no, we're really invested in this. We want to know what's going on here. And there's lots of interplay going on. So it's not like you need more, like there's still lots of intersecting storylines with what we were already getting. And now you're sort of throwing in this like unconnected storyline. And then we get even more where it sort of starts bringing in the people sailing from thingy with the blue griffin guy or whatever. Like it kind of just feels like too like, okay, but I don't really want to invest anymore in these guys, sort of thing. So
exactly. And when they went around to doing the showrunners were like, we're gonna leave out the Griffin guy because our plate is full.
So that's so as much as I love the books and stuff like that, but yeah, that is, I think it's a fair criticism sort of thing. So I think there's a little element of that sort of thing to it. And I wonder how the fans of the game felt about this, because I don't think she was a character in the game either. So I wonder if they were kind of like, "Hey, Mel, get out of here," because we want to see more of our characters from the game and stuff. But So that mining room and what did I write here? The mining room adds another layer to the most tragic tragedy that ever tragedied. Okay. There's so many what ifs, and this even gives you like, oh, what if they had succeeded, or what if, what if that family had been able to raise their kids in a happy sort of time, sort of thing. And this episode, it was an awesome fight scene, where they find, like, Vander comes back in, and it's a great battle, just so visually, with the clap clap zone, so it's all like light and dark and that sort of stuff, and the punches, the slow motion and stuff. Where every fight scene Vi's in with those punch gloves. I
yeah, that's really
she's
fun.
I just love watching her fight because she's just fighting with her fists. Even when she's got the punch gloves, she's just punching people, and everyone else has always got like giant robotic thingies or blades or venom spitting toxin, whatever she's fighting, and she's just punching people. So we get that great sort of underdog fight sort of thing, and then we get like the happiest. It's like up until this point for me, like the happiest of happy moments. Like he comes running in and she says Vander or something like that, and then it cuts to black or whatever, and then we have like Jinx like scared and like with the light, and it's just totally dark, and she's like whimpering and she's like looking, and it's like finally we get the like, are we going to be happy, are we not? And we get like that they're hugging and they come in for the hug, and it's just like the happiest. Like it's just so like, oh my god, this is so good. Like we get the happiest moment like for me in the whole, like I don't know, yeah, I think for me this is the happiest moment, right? It's just like because we just get to enjoy them hugging, and it's
totally
so good, so good.
It might be their, like for both of the sisters, that might be their first sort of win. The only time we ever really see them win.
Yeah, they win unequivocally. They just win, and it's so good. And it's taken us halfway through the second season to get here, and it's immediately followed though by, and it's not, but this is the thing, it doesn't completely erase everything, but so we get a win and nothing erases it, but then we get followed, like I think the final scene is just a WTF scene with Jace, because they've disappeared. We haven't had them for now 2 episodes. Like we're like, where the hell did those other guys go? Like, and Bessa mentions, hey, all the people in power got disappeared, and we see Mel. Okay, where did she go? But the scientists, that was a pretty big scene, and it's like, oh, whoa, what's going on there? And so we see Jace appear, and Jace is not himself. Jace is not looking good. And he sees that he has a conversation, and we obviously we haven't even talked about. I can't believe we've got to this far in the discussion. We haven't even talked about in that first arc what Victor's going through, because that's massive, right?
Yeah.
But let's just quickly talk. So like here we see he's talking to like in the cloud Victor with the previous one of the counselors, Cello, I think his name is. And Jace just flat out murders him in the most brutal way possible, and we're like, what could have possibly, like, he is looking rough, and his hammer is looking rough and stuff, and we are like, what has happened here? This is this, and that hex gate thing or whatever that thing is in the thing looks weird and stuff, and it's like, whoa, things aren't right. Things are not right. Like, I'm really invested in what's going on with Vander and stuff now, but this is a whole new world of like, I don't understand what the hell's going on here, and it's not right. And yeah, like, because you know how we were talking about like Jace just in the previous season, he just kind of stumbled through stuff and just kind of bumbling through, and he had big impacts on the story. Lots of his bumbling led to things going wrong for people and stuff like that. But here we see it's like, no, he's like, something's messed up, and he makes a very intentional decision here. Like, what did you think of that? Like, I don't know if you feel free to dive back into also talking about Victor and stuff as well and what we see of that. But what were your thoughts on the end of that?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the plot lines that just went way over my head. Throughout all of Arcane, I can confidently say Jace is my least favorite of any aspect of the show, because whenever Jace shows up, it's always the same thing. Like he'll walk into a room, he'll talk to somebody, blah 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 blah, hex tech, and the person is like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, hex tech, yeah, and then they'll go their separate ways. And I like this relationship with Victor, and I like how you clearly see the idea back in season 1 where like, here's these 2 guys who are of the same mind, except one of them is more traditionally handsome and heroic looking and healthy. And so his career goes on this upward trajectory, whereas
Yes.
Victor keeps declining.
Yes.
And yet they're still walking the same path together. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. You know, this is going to end with some friction here. And it eventually does, but we kind of have them sort of drawn apart and together and apart and together. And then in this season, we end up with Victor pretty much almost dying until they stuff him in that back to tank from Empire Strikes Back. And he's like, okay, I'm cool in here now. But then all this stuff with Victor and Jace throughout season 2 was just really completely lost on me. Like we get to the point where it's like, okay, Victor is kind of a god now. And also his friend from the lab who had a crush on him is there, but maybe she's not really there.
Yeah.
And
is she just in his head?
It's just his guilt talking, in which case that's kind of cool. But and then Jace disappears and he comes back and he's like, I'm going to kill you, Victor. And I'm like, okay, I'm really missing something here.
Yeah.
And then we find out why. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get it. They retroactively told us why. I like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of it all with Victor, I'm still just like, wait, you're kind of the bad guy now? How did we get here? I thought we were dealing with something totally different.
Yeah. And that's why I'll say, I think, and Bess is the main villain, but that's why I was like, she's kind of the main villain, because also like it kind of ends up being two main villains at the same time, right? Sort of thing. Like, but Victor's path, like I really liked, like I didn't understand anything he was talking about, except except he had a great accent when he was saying it in Glorious Evolution. Glorious. I can't do a Russian accent, but how are you at your Russian accents? Can you say Glorious Revolution?
Yeah, his was not, his was like really good. My Glorious Revolution.
Nice. What's we're talking about Game of Thrones. I think the guy who played Viserys, the brother in the first season of Game of Thrones, the one who gets the crown poured on his head.
Yeah.
I think he does the voice of Victor.
Oh, that's wild.
I think his name is Harry Lloyd, I think. So
that's great.
So just a little shout out there. I think he did a good job. But I love what you said about how Jace is like the traditional handsome guy, and he just gets the free pass through life, and just with as much bumbling and stuffing things up he does, he just continues to rise. And you could see the kind of arguably, and Jace, look, we should point out that Jace is also a brilliant mind, and he does, like, scientifically he is very clever and is able to make lots of breakthroughs and stuff like that. But it's almost you can kind of see that Victor is probably the more talented, but because of where he was born, because of his and because of where he was born, he has health problems, and his looks and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, he is kind of like overlooked, and he's just kind of like luckily enough able to attach himself to. He was found by Heimerdinger, who is a person who looks for talent rather than necessarily looks or anything like that. But then he's also able to attach himself to Jace, and finds in Jace, that they are kindred spirits, and they both have that altruistic, almost naive thing of they want to help the people and that sort of thing. But obviously Jace kind of gets manipulated and stuff because he stumbles into that political world, and Victor kind of he's sort of put on a timeline because of his health, and he is obviously runs into the kind of nefarious alchemist guy, who obviously sort of like gives him a little bit of a nebulous sort of like tolerance for the dark arts and stuff like that. So he starts exploring with putting I think it's accidental at first, but like his blood is what kind of like warps the hex gate or whatever, the hex ball or whatever it is, and then that kind of, and he kind of keeps getting corrupted by that. But or does he corrupt it? Does his like humanity corrupt it or whatever? But, that whole storyline of like humanity and technology and magic and what that all is about, kind of, I'm a bit it's kind of lost on me. I get that it's kind of like, the basic beats of like, okay, so he's horrified at first because remember at the end of the first season he comes to peace with like, oh no, I should just, I shouldn't try, and we've hurt people with this stuff, so I'm going to die because of my disease. I should just be allowed to die, sort of thing. And then like Jace brings him back, and he's like, "Why did you do this? Like, this is an abomination. This is not right," sort of thing. Because he realizes how, and it's when he kills that accidentally kills the girl, his assistant, that he realizes how wrong and dangerous this thing is. So he's horrified with that. But then he discovers this power. He decides, well, I've got to take myself out of here, right? I've got to I just have to go into exile or something, is what I sense that he thinks he has to do, sort of thing. But then he kind of discovers this power where he can heal people, and then he sort of maybe has a bit of a rethink or whatever. But it was a really interesting through that first, that was introducing to me. I was like, oh, this is another, I'm really interested where this storyline is going. Like, unlike the Black Rose thing where I was a bit like, oh, I'm a bit lost and I'm not really invested in it. Victor's new storyline of like, whoa, like, okay, he's really being kept alive by this weird evil looking power, and then like he goes on this like journey into the underground and like almost sort of starts building up this little cult of like healing the lepers or whatever.
Yes, and that was great, like, to see that world come back to itself, like bring Victor, because he's always been up there in the tower.
Yes,
bring him there, and it's starting to push everybody together, which is what I love so much about episode 5. Is that every like Vi, the girls, like they come together, Victor's there, and Bessa's people start showing up. I'm like, okay, all these disparate things are starting to get more cohesive. And
that's right. It felt like, okay, this is like this. It's all kind of making sense. It's coming together, sort of thing. And it's like you said, like it was good to see, Victor coming back to his roots, but also like him finding a way. It's like Ambessa was finally able to find, and it all happening at the same time and in conflict with each other, right? Like she was able to find her weapon in the scientist, and then subsequently Victor, essentially it becomes. But like, but he's able to find like a way to do what he always wanted to do, which was to help the people and to heal the people and bring better lives to them. Albeit even at this stage where now in this middle arc, it kind of is still like, even though it looks utopian in a sense, but it's very cultish and kind of horrific, because you kind of get the sense that even though these people are all healed and stuff, and he says, oh no, they're totally here. They're is Cello even still in there? It's like, no, he's still here. Look, and but it's kind of like, you're like, do these people really have free will? Like at what price, sort of thing? Is this a false chalice, sort of thing?
When the bouncer at the door is just smiling ear to ear and saying, no weapons, friend. It's hard not to get creeped out.
So that's cool. And then I think episode 6 is where Vi and those guys arrive here at this place, and this is the one that I'm going to skip to the end here. At the end of this episode, Lecky just looked at me and she just said, and apologies to viewers out here, I like to keep this channel clean, but Lecky just looked at me and said, fucking Jace. She just like, seriously, Jace, you are why we cannot have nice things, because this like, as much as like the end of the last episode where they're all hugging in the tunnel sort of thing was for me, like the happiest moment of this show. It's like, yes, they've succeeded and they've got Vander back. We realize in this episode that, okay, he's not quite back, but watching back the second time, I realized a funny little trick they do with this that I missed is, which I guess you would always miss because you don't, well, you may not, but like this episode ends essentially with how it begins with how it ends, like the little coin rolling, like you see it sort of ends with like looking at this sort of like wreckage flying in the air, and then you see this coin or cog rolling and like hitting the ground, and someone saying, I realized that I see it now, or whatever. That sort of like is at the end where Jace blasts him and the coin rolls out and hits the ground at the end of the episode. Like it sort of ends, so we know what that coin is all about from the beginning of the episode, sort of thing. I just thought that was a fun little storytelling trick or whatever that they did. But
that was cool.
And I've written here in my notes, Sin, if you're still watching, I'm going to need Sin to explain what Victor is talking about. like we said, I'm going to need someone else to explain. Like you said, Andrew, like I don't like everything went over my, like all his philosophy and all that sort of stuff. I don't.
Yes. And at this point, really I was between Victor and the Black Rose.
Yeah.
I was already starting to feel like I'm missing so much that when Jace showed up and is just like, I'm going to kill my friend, I'm just like, add another thing to the list that I must have missed. So little did I know that this was supposed to be confusing.
Yes, yeah.
And then we're supposed to find out why after the fact.
Yeah,
but yeah, at that point, I was just, I wasn't tuned out, but I was just like, okay, you know, I'm still confused.
Yeah. But yeah, like this is like the Red Wedding, where it's like the writing of that in the I'm making a lot of text to text connections today. I'm doing a very good job with my comprehension skills here. But the writing of that scene is just so foreboding. Like they're at that wedding and everything seems to be going well, but there's just these little hints, and it's just like the music is discordant, and there's the Caitlin has a headache, and the pounding of the drums and pounding of her head, like something is coming. It's almost like footsteps of a monster. Like we're just here at a wedding and it's all good, and we're progressing the plot to take down the Lannisters, but something isn't right, and what's coming, sort of thing. And this, like watching back, I've written here my notes. Watching back, I don't know how I let myself believe we could have a happy ending here, right? Because, you know, everything we've been taught to believe in any story, right? Like, but it does but you know, and it does. It puts the foreboding stuff. You know, it's like, okay, here they are. Like we've got Vander back, but he's a monster. So how's this going to end well? We've got Vander back. And where are they going for help? A weird, creepy, techno cultist, like, you know, thing that doesn't seem good, hive mind, happy cult sort of thing. You know, we're with the smiling guy, like, oh, don't bring your new weapon. It's like, this is okay. But then, you know, it does such a good job of like creating that hope. Like, it seems to be going well, and Victor gets offered to, like, you know, turn on him, but he says no, I'm going to help my friends, and blah blah blah. And we get there, but Jace is in the back. We know that Jace has turned up, and he's weird and crazy, and you know, but no, you know, it's all okay. Things seem to be going all right. And it just sort of like we almost get there, and we get those beautiful moments, and that's why I sort of like I sort of when I think of this arc, I think of the whole thing as like the happiest I've been and the unhappiest, and I just love the emotions it puts in me, sort of thing, because we get those little flashbacks when Victor's trying to help Vander, and we go and we see his emotions, and the soundtrack again, the music choices they make with all the montages and the little things, they're always so spot on. And we get that happy music, and we're going through and we're seeing the family happy, and Vander's memories of the family being happy, even when they were still with the mum and dad and stuff. We just those beautiful watercolor pictures, and it's just so pure and beautiful. And they're just dancing around, just so nice. And we get that scene where they're finally, like, we get another hugging scene as well. And hello, Eddie. How you going? Your little head here. Say hi to the folks. Hello. But we get that moment, and it just, like, we get it. I think we don't even get it for 10 seconds. Like he wakes up and he says, like, don't touch. So we know he's back because he says, don't touch my daughter, or something like that. And that, like, I think that literally is the happiest I've ever been in the show. But it doesn't last. Like, I think it's the other one as well, because it lasts for like a second, because then we immediately flash to, I think, like, Jace walking. We know that Ambessa and stuff are there, so we know something's bad. But Jace starts walking down the hill or something, and it's just like, no, this is, you know, it's so bad. And so we get, or he might even be walking in. I think at that point he's walked into the room with Victor, and so we get this happy moment where they're all hugging, and then we see Jace, and he's got his hammer, and his feet shift stance into like he's readying himself, and it's like, oh no. And I've said here as well. What did I say? It's there was something else that creates hope here as well. I forget what. Oh, we okay, when everything goes bad and Jace blasts Victor, and it's just like, oh no, and then Vander goes crazy again. The other thing that's so beautiful and sad is that scene with Aisha, where we see Jinx realizing that Isha's doing something crazy, and we see Isha start running, and it goes into that montage flashback of them being happy together and Isha remembering all the good times, and them like running through the thing and spraying the graffiti, and it's just so they just had such an idyllic, beautiful time together, and what could have been.
And man, that's it. And it's like she's literally watching herself being reckless.
Yes.
She's watching young Powder jumping in that warehouse saying, I can save them with my monkey toy.
Yes.
And you know it's not going to end well. And even in retrospect now, having seen the final 3 episodes, you realize how senseless it all was, because Vander didn't get hurt by that at all.
No, he didn't. It's just like, oh my God. Yeah. Just so...
I think it's really, for me, that's where the show peaks right there.
Yes, like absolutely. Like, as much as it hurts me the most, I must be like a masochist or something, because it's like the Red Wedding, right? It's like that's where I think Game of Thrones peaks for me. It's just like, I can't believe how much this is hurting me, and I don't love it because it's hurting me, but I love it because I'm so impressed with their ability to hurt me. Like I feel like I'm such a cynic in many ways to stories and things like that, that when I know it's manipulating me, I know that these aren't real characters, I know it's just a story, but you're making me feel as sad as if like someone I know has passed or something. It's like, you've done such a good job of building a backstory so I feel personally connected, and you've done such a good job of crafting the story so that it hits in the way that it hits, and it plays out the way that it plays out.
And it's done with a character who hasn't said a single word to us.
Yeah.
And it happens in the same episode that Victor gets killed.
Yep.
Yeah. And Victor getting killed really had I wasn't like, oh, poor Victor. It was just the consequences of it was what made it sad. Like, seeing Isha die was like, oh, this is wrenching at my heart. But seeing Victor die, a character we've known for even longer, who we've gotten to know really well, it was a testament to how important Isha was emotionally to everything. And that's for me the best part of Arcane, is just the emotional attachment to everybody, and how you get tugged along so violently into this world by that. You don't get tugged along by the plot stuff, by the blah 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 hex tech stuff. That's just there as set dressing at the end of the day. But it's really caring for these people that takes hold of you and doesn't let go, and that's where the show really shines. Yeah.
Oh my God. So just like this is these moments. This is what I have been dying, and I don't know if I will ever be able to articulate properly, but this is what, like, when I was like, I have to talk to someone about this show, it's like, it's these 4 episodes together, what they lead to, what they mean because of everything we've got before. It's like, just, I cannot, like, this will, like, that moment in time, that whole scene will, I think, last. I think I'll always remember that. Like, I think I'm always going to remember the monkey clap of thingy, but I think this almost supersedes it. It probably builds on it and is a single memory of this show and that storyline. But that moment, like, I'm never going to forget that. Like, it just impacted me so much. I was like,
that was, and especially I can imagine as a dad with kids, like, you
yes,
must look at that at a totally different
yeah,
lens than I do too, right? So
yeah, and just like like and like little Eddie who just popped up, knowing how reckless he is and stuff, and like just like don't do reckless things, like terrifies me.
yeah, that's where the juice of the story is, and it's what makes a story like Arcane so great and so addictive. I think a good comparison that I can make here is
hey JF.
Oh, hi JF. I'm a huge fan of the show Lost. I don't know if you ever watched Lost.
I didn't watch much of it. No, I caught episodes here or there, but I never really followed it. Yeah. So.
Okay, I've actually been rewatching it because it's the 20-year anniversary, and
okay.
I am in the
20 years.
minority. 20 years, since it began.
Okay.
I'm in the minority because I'm one of the people who absolutely loves the ending. It's one of those endings that people were furious and throwing the remotes at the TV company. I absolutely loved it, and the show has so many crazy island mysteries and things like that, and those are all fun. But at the end of the day, those are all the equivalent of blah 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 hex tech. Because what got me so invested in Lost was every single character on that show was like a master class in good writing. And by the time you finish getting to know each one, you are so emotionally invested in it that all the crazy island crap is just like, they could say anything at this point. I just care about what happens to John Locke. I care about what happens to Hurley, and you get the story pulling you in from that perspective. And it's the same with Arcane. Half the stuff that they're fighting for, I couldn't tell you, but the people making those choices and fighting those fights, I want to see them succeed. And that to me is what good storytelling is all about.
Yeah. And I think like we were saying back in this particular part of the arc, this middle arc, that's why I really appreciated that you could still, they were doing such a good job of giving us like understandable motivations for these characters. And I really appreciated that. And I think it's really interesting how the next arc, the final arc, because I see a lot of people complaining about the ending and the saying it was rushed and they were trying to fit too much in and all this sort of stuff. And I can see that I liked the ending. I like you. I think this middle part of the arc is just where it absolutely peaked, and this is what just like story-wise is just like, even though it wrenched my heart out and wasn't really an ending in a sense, because we need some sort of closure after something like this. But I just loved this part. But I still was satisfied with the ending. I liked it. I feel like as much as I've been saying, well, a lot of it's going over my head, I feel like I sort of had a grasp of at least what was going on with these other storylines. I feel like I had an okay grasp of the Black Rose to a point that I could just, appreciate it for where it was in the story and that sort of stuff. So like, I felt like they did a fairly good job of tying it all together. But what I think I realized that I really appreciated in this final arc is that what they did manage to do for me was they managed to bring Echo back in a big way and have him so pivotal at the end, and I loved his part in the ending and that sort of stuff. And I really also love what they did after what just happened, how they opened with the next episode sort of thing, because we don't see Echo at all in the Echo or Heimerdinger in that middle arc at all. Jace comes back with that WTF moment. I think Black Rose might be in future storylines, because I think they're going to go to realms that might be more dealt with that in future seasons and stuff. But because remember we were watching X-Men 97, and we had that hugely impactful, I'd say equivalent sort of impactful moment in Genosha, I think episode 5 or 6 or whatever it was, and we had that just absolutely devastating, the death of Gambit and just like the devastation of Genosha and what could have been, death of Magneto and Leech. No, Leech.
Poor Leech.
And I didn't like the next episode because it sort of went completely to a different setting. None of the stakes were kind of until the very end to do with what had just happened, and it was Professor X doing Professor X things with Lilandra. And I didn't like it, but I think you used a good term, like you said, it was kind of like a palate cleanser. It sort of gave you time to sort of compress and, well, compress or depress. Oh, I don't know. Decompress. Decompress is probably the word I'm looking for. And that sort of thing. And I think, and I think I think I said when I was thinking about it, because you made some really good points about that, and I think it did it in a way. It took me to a storyline that it just didn't click with me. I didn't like. I wasn't really interested in the Shi'ar stuff, even though I don't mind the Shi'ar stuff otherwise. But like just the way just those scenes, for some reason, I didn't like those scenes or whatever. And it just kind of like, I was like, just give me some closure, or give me something like what's happening? What's happening? I need to know. Like, is any of those people I thought died alive, or like who's going to get revenge? Like, come on, like give me some payback or something. And this one does a similar thing. It just completely takes us completely out of the story, takes us somewhere else. But it was such a beautifully done, I thought, episode, and with a character ideally was missing, because I need some more hope, right? Echo is a source of hope in this show, and like we were saying, he's kind of like the main protagonist almost in a way of this show. So this one worked for me. It was like a palate cleanser that I was like, okay, so we're not going to really deal with anything that's just happened, but I'm okay with that. Like, give me some more of this sort of thing.
Especially if it's more of Echo with Heimerdinger, because that's
Echo with Heimerdinger. Yeah, that was great, and it was such an interesting. It was such an interesting sort of occurrence. Like, okay, it explained where did they go, and it was such a cool explanation of what was going on, and it was such a nice. It was so great for many ways. Like, I won't go on. I'll say my piece afterwards, because I feel like I've been talking for a lot here. But what did you think about this episode?
Well, I always love the idea of seeing parallel worlds and what could have been the answer to the great what if question.
Yes,
with characters you've grown to love. That's always fascinating. And then getting our first and only glimpse of happy, healthy Powder. Like,
right? Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. And just getting to see just a little slice of what could have been, even if it was only for one episode. I thought that was a beautiful choice to, especially after just a whole season and a half of the good guys losing, to just see what the other world could be like, and then having the choice. I wish they had grappled with it a bit more, but having to see Echo and Heimerdinger make the choice of like, man, this place is 10 times better than where we came from, but I guess we can't stay. Like, that's so like intrinsic to the heart and soul of it all. Is we're trying to make things better. We got sent to a place that's better, but that doesn't solve our problem.
Yeah, like, okay, so if we stay, we can enjoy what's better, but we're not making what's better for all the folks that we actually love. Like, yes, all those folks are still here, and we get to enjoy them being happy, but we know that there's an elsewhere that is. And I think that just cements like what a hero those guys are. Like, they sacrifice absolute happiness. Like, everything was perfect. Like the ripple effect. And this was another thing too. I talk about like that monkey clap, the ripple of what that caused. And for me, that monkey clap is like, oh, what if she didn't go and she didn't bring that bomb? But interestingly, what they show here is that that's not the what if moment. The what if moment is them going to, in terms of what I remember anyway, it's because we see that, okay, in this world for Jinx to be happy to be Powder, Vi kind of needs to die. Like Vi, like it's that Vi in that little mission, the bomb goes off in that room and Vi doesn't get out of the way and Vi is killed. and that's the ripple that changes everything for the better. And the ripple is huge. Like, it looks to me like Vaughn and Piltover are kind of in symbiosis with each other. Like the people, all the people, it's bright and happy. Like the people in Vaughn are thriving, are prospering, prospering. That sort of guilt of death of a poor little urchin from the Undercity has died in this hex explode, this explosion up the thingy has like opened the hearts of the Piltovers or whatever to. So you know what I mean? Like, it looks like the whole community are thriving. Vander and Silco, and it looks like that, because at this point that war has already happened, like, where Vander and thingy led the uprising, but it looks like this has also changed the minds of folks like Silco and stuff, and he's brought back into the fold, and like he's now with Vander and the gang, and Benzo, or is it Benzo?
I think Benzo. Yeah.
Like that whole thing, and that was such a beautiful moment, just seeing, like, I love all the reactions, like, because Powder is just not Powder, Echo is just Echo, right? And it's Echo that we know and all the experiences he's had, and the first instinct he has when he sees Powder is to try and kill her. Like, he throws that thing at force, and if she doesn't duck that, she's dead, sort of thing. Like, he throws that thing at her, and then like he sees Benzo and he just like drops everything and just hugs him, because of what obviously he must have meant to him as a father figure and stuff. And it's just so beautiful, and it just solidifies the heroism of them to make that choice to give that all up, to go back and try and make things right, even though they know that when they go back, none of that has happened, so they can't make things as right. As all they can do is go back and try and do what you were hoping for, right? Which is not necessarily go back and be on the council or anything, but go back and make whatever right in whatever right way they can do, right? They're just trying to get back to the folks they love, and so they can be there to take care of them and that sort of thing. So, man, it was like so good, but it was done in such a beautiful way too. It was just so happy and vibrant, like we see. And the dance scene when they're dancing, it's such a magical sort of. And someone made the point, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there's a lot of these choices where it's like, because he can only go back 4 seconds in time with that device that he's made. And someone was saying that the animation frame was like 4 frames per second or whatever
cool.
You know what I mean? Like, so that dance was like, and like, and just that moment where they're together sitting there, and staring out over the thingy, and then we have that mirrored scene later on in the last episode, I think, where he's staring out, but he's not with Powder, sort of thing, because he made that choice to sort of come back to this world, and that was never going to happen, sort of thing. So, and I think a lot of people are like, oh no, but he could get back together with Jinx and stuff. But like, the thing is, you got to remember, like, Jinx has murdered so many of his friends. Like, I don't think they could ever be. Like, yes, he was able to like team up with her at the end, sort of thing, but like, that relationship was never going to be the same as his and Powder's, sort of thing.
Yeah, they have very different lives here.
Yeah, Jay is saying, I think they just want it to be short and sweet so they can't stay in any episode part. I mean, there are a lot of characters to tell. Yeah, absolutely. And so, but this also gave us, we start to see, okay, because it's like you said, like, fucking Jace. Like, but we obviously know, and obviously he looks like he's been through some stuff, and he says that line, like, I promise I won't fail. Obviously he's talking to someone that he met or whatever, and so we know that there's a reason for doing what he's doing, because we know Jason. We know that, like, that's not really what he would have done unless there was a really good reason. As much as we had, like, when we were watching this, we had like a whole week to stew on it, and the internet was full of hatred of Jace for which I think there probably still is, but like, we get to see what he went through. And man, did he not luck out? What's the opposite of lucking out? Did he like pull the short straw and strike out? Yeah. Did he like go to the wrong place?
Yeah.
He had a bad time. So that was a really, and it's like you said before, like, what's going to bring Vi and Jinx back together? It's like, what could possibly bring them back together? And we saw the Vander, the return of Vander is the thing that gave them hope to come back together. And it's like, what could possibly make Jace, the altruistic sort of guy who thinks he's always doing the right thing, like, do the stuff that he does when he comes back? And it's like, oh, Yeah. Okay. He sees the end point of hex tech and where that leads and stuff, and it's horrifying.
Right.
Yeah. What did you like? I guess the thing is, it's horrifying and it's like really bad, but I don't understand a lot of it. Like
Exactly, and like I didn't understand that this world was a result of hex tech. I didn't understand that it was an apocalypse world. I just thought, ooh, it's trippy magic stuff, and it's just crazy animation for crazy animation's sake. And then meeting this version of Victor, who is also the wizard that he met when he was a kid, and it really, I wasn't sure what they were trying to tell me about this experience that Jace had. So I just ended up walking out of it where when he emerges back in the real world and goes after Victor, I'm like, okay, whatever it was, I assume that the show is basically saying Victor equals bad now and he's got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And I stayed on that train just to keep myself going.
Yeah. And and hello to audience. He's saying that, hi Udi. He's saying, have we watched season 1? Yes, we have. So season 1, there's a review. If you go back through the last few live, it's another live stream. I think it's the last thing I did prior to the 12 days of Meeple Monkey Christmas, so you can check it out there. And yeah, hi Udi. And for folks watching at home, Udi is one of my good mates as well.
Awesome. Hello.
Merry Christmas, Udi. And I hope you're having a swim today because it's nice, good weather. He's got a nice pool in his backyard. I always like to go around for a swim. Mainly, it is mainly Victor. He became one. Now, before I read your comment here, JF, because I'll try and give because he'll probably explain it much. Because I was saying I need Sin and I need folks like JF to explain what the hell's going on to me.
Yeah.
But I think I did get that. Okay, so I recognize, okay, this is the end point of hex. Like this is where when Jace is saying like, and even Victor starts to recognize that the arcane, whether it's hex tech or the arcane, and we know Heimerdinger's always warned against like the cataclysm that untapped arcane can bring, and the hubris of the wizards and that sort of stuff. I think I understood. Okay, something obviously goes wrong with the hex tech to a point that it just obliterates in the way that Heimerdinger always talks about. It just obliterates everyone, obliterates the world, or at least the world around Piltover, sort of thing. So I understood that, and I sort of assumed it was that through good intentions, Victor's use of the thingy, or good intentions, but in the hands of the wrong people, causes this to happen. Like either Singed gets to him or Ambessa or whatever, and this is the outcome. And so Jay sort of knows that this is, and he discovers. So I kind of had a feeling like when Jace comes back and goes, oh, I didn't know who he was talking to, because at first I thought, oh, he must be talking to Heimerdinger and Echo, and they must be still trapped back wherever they are. But then we see that he's alone here, and I'm like, oh, I wonder who he was talking to. But obviously, he realizes that whatever path Victor's down, even though he's trying to use it for good, he knows that it has to be stopped. And I thought maybe Victor turns evil, but I just thought it was going to be more one of those, because knowing at this point, I'm like, I'm wise to your tricks, Arcane. It's going to be one of those things where Victor's not going to realize he's doing the wrong thing, and Jace is going to have to be forced to like kill his friend, even who won't understand, or something like that. And it kind of ended up almost being that's how it turned out, sort of thing. But this I sort of forget where I was going with this. But yeah, I think I at least understood that with the hex sort of stuff, and that Victor wasn't necessarily going to be evil, but that it was going to lead to this thing that, like, the outcome was so bad that it needed to be stopped no matter what.
Yeah,
sort of
I think JF is putting it really well here, where they say like he became one with hex tech, and his main goal was to end all suffering and conflicts, and to end all of it, he needed to unite everyone, even by force. So it became sort of a rogue AI almost
Yeah,
situation
that's what.
where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
Skynet decided the
yeah,
humans were the
exactly,
problem, and to save humans, get rid of them all, or
exactly. Yeah, it
the
became a Skynet
Matrix.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
so
that's the same thing with the Matrix, right? Like put all the humans, like
I
AI
think
decided
so.
that we were the problem, and just
Yeah,
yeah, something like that.
and that
Yeah.
really helps kind of make sense of it all,
Mm,
and
mm,
it puts Victor's and Jace's conflict into a much better perspective. So thank you, Jo.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
But I think now with that knowledge,
Mm,
looking at the final episode now, as because
mm.
I think we've kind of come up to it now, right? Where
Yes, yeah,
Ambessa's storming the fortress and everything.
yes.
I
Well,
think
sorry. Because I think after this palette cleanser episode, then there's kind of like this. The 8th episode is actually like a setup episode. It's the one
that's right.
episode where I feel like in the whole series where it's just kind of like a place filler. It's just sort of setting things up, taking us. It kind of shows us the aftermath of what happened. We realize that what's his name is Vander's still alive. We see the girls in prison, but then Caitlin. That's a but yeah. Then we kind of go into the battle. So sorry to go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that you're right. That was like the calm before the storm and getting everybody where they need to be. But now that JF has kind of made that clear for me, looking at that final battle, what still I still feel like I wish they could have elevated it to a point where everything clicked together a bit more, at least for me, because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ambessa and Vi and Jinx are at that battle, and Caitlin as well, and they have no idea what's going on with Victor. Like that is not even on their radar.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think to your point about the whole thing, like I think obviously the story runners to a degree failed in connecting everything perfectly because so many people, myself included, like I feel like I enjoyed it, but I don't fully understand. But I just kind of ignored the fact that I didn't fully understand it.
Exactly. I enjoyed the vibes.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, the vibes, right? Yeah, it's about the vibes. Have you seen the show, the movie, The Castle?
No.
It's an old Australian movie. Pretty dinky sort of thing, but it's kind of a classic sort of comedy sort of thing about this family, suburban family that take on, I forget what they're fighting over, but they're taking on like a big court case sort of thing, and they have this dodgy lawyer who comes in and he tries to argue in front of the court that he's like, it's just about the vibe, Your Honor. Like it's just he can't explain what he's talking about. It's just about the vibe. Yeah, and I think yeah, Vi, Jinx, those guys don't really understand what's going on. I think Ambessa, to a degree, like she understands that this guy Victor, he's kind of explained things a little bit to her, and she understands enough to know that he's this weapon, and he's this, like, she's seen what his robots can do. Now he's even more powerful with these robot things that he's able to create out of the people that so she understands that, but I don't think she has no insight into what his true motivations are or anything like that, or what he's planning on doing. She's just, I think, using his stuff as a army, right, as a cover for her getting in there and like, because they're trying to breach the thing, and what are they trying to get to? Like the
there's the core. They're trying to
get to the
protect
core.
Jace.
Yeah, actually, they're trying to protect. They're trying to get to the core to the bad guys essentially are trying to get Victor to the core so he can take over, because she wants Hex Tech, right? And the control of Hex Tech is all controlled by this core thing. So they're trying to get to the core to take it over. So I would imagine so that Ambessa has the core so she can fight the Black Rose, right? I think is the thing, and she's made a deal with this robot guy to do that. She doesn't realize that the robot guy plans on just like turning all their minds to the Matrix and that sort of stuff. She just thinks that he's going to help her get there and be a tool. I think that's most humans won't do a thing against an actual god. That's right. Yeah. So that's what I think. In terms of who understands what's going on here, the others are just kind of like fighting because and that I guess that's the thing, right? And what have I written here? For episode 9, like almost an entire it's interesting because I said pretty much the entire episode, like apart from like 2 minutes at the beginning where he's giving a speech, because it cuts like mid speech we're already into the battle, right? That's how it kind of, he's giving the speech and then all of a sudden we're like running, and it kind of cuts back and forth for the last few sentences or something where we're like, oh, we're running through this battle as he's speaking, sort of thing, and then it cuts to, okay, we're in Vi's perspective or something, running through the battle or something like that. And I said here, it seems kind of strange that this whole nuanced show like just ends in a battle. Like, I know I've read a lot of like fantasy stories and things like that where I'm reading this thing, I'm really enjoying it, and then it just kind of ends in this battle, and the battle just kind of, like all battles do, just stuff happens and somehow one person wins. Like it just ends in a battle sort of thing. And it's like this whole thing that was telling this much bigger picture, and this idea of like class between cities and family story and all this sort of stuff ends in a battle that really isn't about family or anything. It's a battle about the fate of a city or a world. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's what kind of feels a bit off.
It got zoomed out when everything else
it got zoomed out. And that's why I think the peak of this show was because that middle arc, it's right in on the impact of everything on this family. Like,
yes.
And that's, also Ambessa will be a common thing for all of them. Yeah, we'll want to fight, prove strength and fight, even if it's pointless. Yeah, she was, she was willing to like, she was very much about like, as much as like she's a villain and stuff, like she had honor, battle honor, right? Like she was also very conniving, but like she was like, it was like that scene we saw where she saw that whatever that beast was, she didn't know what it was capable of, but she was ready to meet it with her battle mask and stuff as it came out of the train or whatever. But then I sort of wrote, but I guess, was this whole story telling us, like, we see everything is simmering, like, was war inevitable? We see Ambessa comes in because she knows there's some sort of a war coming, and we don't know what it's with. We discover it's kind of like the Black Rose and stuff. And I guess we don't really, like, we're like, what is this whole thing with Victor? It kind of, because it's disguised for so long as like, oh, he's like working for good sort of thing. Like, that kind of comes out of nowhere where that becomes the big threat. It's like you were saying, like, yeah, all of a sudden, oh, Victor's the bad guy. Like, that kind of feels a bit like, it all, that's where I think it definitely sort of feels like, wow. And so much of that fight, this big set piece thing, has these different, and it's almost like separate, like there's that fight for the Noxus type soldiers and fight for what Ambessa wants on that platform, and that's kind of separate to the fight for, because like she's fighting to get there, but then she almost stops caring about getting to the thing, and she just wants to fight Caitlin and fight, on those steps and that sort of thing. But the fight is really well told, and the story of that fight is really good, with lots of rugs pulled out from under us, and the set play of it, and like you can see the game plan of both sides, and there's like, oh, it looks like they're going to win, and then, oh, a sneaky trick, and then, oh no, but then they, and second chances and stuff like that, and Jinx comes in at the last minute, like the cavalry, and the whole story of like seeing the troops sign up. I think that's at the beginning of the episode. Like, we see as he's giving that speech, we see who's likely to sort of join, and he's trying to convince the Pilto, the Zorn people to come in, and they don't really. We see certain families, and it's really sad. We see some of the folks who like have nothing to really gain from joining this fight. They're just trying to protect what their families say, what little their families have and stuff. Like a lot of those characters, those little side characters that we've seen through maybe certain episodes, some of them, they end up, you see their deaths in this battle, and you see the cost of that and everything.
That's a shame. And I think we should applaud the show too for making the choice to set this final fight in clear, broad daylight, so that we can see everything. Right? It's so like your background right now. It's pure sunny Piltover.
Yes, that's where it happens there. Yeah.
Thankfully, because we spent a lot of time, especially in season 1, in Zarn there, or whatever it's called, and it's dreary, it's dark, you got the neon lights, but everything's just oppressively dark. So to have arguably the most important part of our story happening in this bright place where everything is super crystal visible, great choice. We needed that. Because
so many of the consequences throughout the show are felt down in the darkness, it was good. And I think even when she fires that rocket up at the end of the first season, is it nighttime? So even like Piltover's in darkness, like that when it blows up in the council room. I can't remember, but yeah, it's good to see like consequences in the daylight. And it's so iconic, like such like the whole thing, like the stylized. Like I love all the story and the nuance and stuff, but I also love the music and the just the artistry of the people building the scenes and the still images. And so there's so many like great images in these fights, where she arrives on, and what you you don't realize to the very end now that Jinx's home has actually been on that, like she's that airship thing, like she's converted her whatever fan of whatever industrial thing she was down in, she's converted that into like an airship and stuff. And then like for her to arrive with I think the other Zornites arrive, and the Firelights kind of arrive at the same time, and that's how we get Echo coming back. And I forgot we even we saw one of those episodes opens with Jinx at her lowest point, blowing herself up and over and over again with Echo. That was cool. And
that was awesome.
We sort of see that, he's now got these time travel powers. And it was so cool to see that in the fight as well. We get a lot of cool fight moments, like the soldiers running through, and then them having to have that sort of it coming to like a one-on-one fight with Ambessa and girl with the gun, like, and how we get the reveal of Maddie. And all of our like, that's why, I've just realized I've got to wait till Lecky's just walked in. I've got to realize I can't say anything.
Oh, okay.
Because she's only watched up to where she said.
So she doesn't know yet how right she was about.
Yeah. That's right.
But that moment, it really justified a lot of feelings.
Yeah, I won't say anything. You talk about it. She won't know.
Perfect.
Yeah, her feelings were justified. Yeah.
Yes, like seeing Maddie, it's like, oh, how dare you? But at the same time, I knew this was coming. There was something off about you, strange little red-haired girl. I knew something was up. And the whole part, like the aspect of this battle happening on so many different fronts, it reminds me of one of my favorite final battles ever, which is Return of the Jedi, because you have all the great stuff happening on Endor, you have all the great stuff happening in space, and then all the stuff happening in the Emperor's throne room, and you just keep cutting back and forth.
It shares it perfectly.
Yeah, and it all just lines up together so well. And Phantom Menace did that too. It actually did it on 4 fronts, which was very fun. And they had this happening here too. You've got the front steps with Caitlin and Ambessa and Mel, and then you've got the sisters dealing with their thing, and then you've got the rooftop where Victor is going crazy and turning everybody into robots. So it all felt, every time they cut from one to another, like the pacing of it just felt great. Even though I didn't understand why people were doing it, I was like, I like watching them do it.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, for me, I sort of felt like the fight with Ambessa and those guys, like it felt important for their story, their character storylines and things like that. And from what I understood of what Victor was trying to achieve and stuff like that, it was one of those things where I felt like, these are all great fights and stuff, but the only one that matters is Victor. Like Ambessa's fight with Caitlin doesn't matter in the long run. Like what Vi and thing you're trying to do doesn't matter. Like it's all, if Victor succeeds, it's all over. If he doesn't, there's a chance for people, and that's why those other fights matter, because if he doesn't succeed, it's like, well, you want the people that you want to succeed to be left to be able to actually capitalize on the fact that they won, sort of thing. But it's funny you mentioned those different fights all happening in the Phantom Menace being one of those ones that has that, because just brief board game aside, I know Tom Vassell always used to talk about, I think it's out of print now, but there was a great board game apparently made from the Phantom Menace movie, where it was like you played this game and you had 3 separate, it was like a one-on-one sort of game where it was like you played against another player, and you had 3 separate battle zones. So you had one which was like a big battlefield between the Naboo and the droid army, and you had this that the lightsaber battle between the Jedi, Obi-Wan and Thingy versus, so it was like this lightsaber duel, and then you had in a separate place you had the space battle with Anakin flying around trying to blow up the shield generators or whatever on the thingy. So
awesome.
Sorry, we're just gonna, I think, are the kids out? We're doing some well, sorry, I shouldn't reveal anything. We're just doing some Christmas stuff, just in case kids are watching. There we go. So just handing some stuff over here.
Hiding the presents.
Yes, actually. There we go. There we go. And one more. Oh, that's kind of like, that's not very Christmas. You can have that wrapping paper as well. No, we're all good. Okay. So yeah, like that. So I thought like that game came to mind because it's that perfect thing of like all these and all those battlefields on the board game like all interacted with each other, sort of thing. Like
that's really
cool.
Well,
here it would like break down a shield for the drones here and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this was like such a great sort of, you had your moments like where it was like the final sort of fight between Vander and the kids, and how sad that was that like he was gone, and like I can't remember if it happened in this, but his memories finally being stripped away was so sad. Thing. That fight you had, the great like Maddie getting taken out. That was like such an awesome thing, like such a cool, like, like, oh no, is Caitlin going to get it here? And then, and what a great reveal for Mel returning on the scene.
Yes,
that was cool. And seeing how she was going to use her powers and what her powers were was really cool.
And especially because in season 1, Mel was not somebody that I thought we could trust.
Yes, yeah. And we still didn't really know which way she was going to go, even sort of most of the way through this season, right? Even when she got those powers, it's like, okay, she's got these powers now, what's she going to do with them? So that was really cool. But Echo coming back into this and seeing his place in all of this and what impact he was able to have on the final outcome, and seeing like what his whole journey led to, like where he needed to be at the right time, and for the main protagonist to really be the one that kind of had the impact that was able to cause Victor to be defeated, sort of thing, was great. And I feel like I've been missing some of what JF's been saying here. By the way, it's nice to think all the scenes at the show, Face of Who Died, are shown in a different scene, but some are even probably important in the future. Yeah, there's stuff that I think is going to be coming up, because they're not going to do any more Arcane. Like Arcane is over, but they have said that they're going to keep exploring this world of I don't actually know the world of what the world of Arcane's called, but the larger world, like they'll go and have maybe a season in Noxus, or they'll have a season in this and follow other characters in the game. And then there may be some characters that travel from this, like we may run into someone else here or there from this show, but it's not going to follow the story of Piltover, not going to really follow the story of these characters and stuff. So so that's so we who knows like what has been important from what we've shown in future as well. And he said they have different storylines, and Victor is the only really he sort of becomes it's so funny because he doesn't see it kind of comes out of nowhere. His plot for me has always been interesting in the show, but it kind of was never what it was all about. I didn't feel like it was, and it kind of and sure to be and I think the Black Rose will become a lot more important.
I think that's my one. If I have like one wish list thing for if they make more of this world, is that Black Rose was very intriguing, and throughout all of this season it just kind of existed on the periphery of things. And that to me was the rest of the wide Arcane world knocking on the door. And even though they kind of went to the door and said, who is it? They didn't really open it up. And that just tells such a broader story without telling a broader story. So
Yeah.
if they go anywhere in the future, I hope they go with that. But I'm satisfied with what we saw, and I feel like if they never make any more Arcane stuff, I feel like they have still told a great story
absolutely.
to end on.
Yeah, and I love it when shows don't. When I heard that this is like, hey, this is the last season, and knowing that like that's the plan for it, I'm like, oh, I love it. Like I love it when things don't go too long and you kind of lose the thread of it, sort of thing. And you know that it's all kind of planned out. It like, as much as people say, oh, we feel like that this was rushed, like. And that, you know, they tried to put, like, I feel like they had a plan. Like I feel like that as much as maybe it was wrong to try and put as much stuff as they did in the end, or however they paced it out, I feel like it felt to me like they had a plan, and this was their plan, and it wasn't like, oh, whoops, we ran out of time and we're going to try and squeeze some things in.
Yes.
But yeah, the Black Rose sort of thing, I think, yeah, I thought that the Black Rose was like, if we were going to have a big battle at the end, it all came down to like, I thought that's who they, you know, Zorn and Piltover would have to unite to fight against the Black Rose. I thought that was what was coming, not Victor's threat, sort of thing. But I should have paid more attention, I guess. Yeah, so, but Echo, like, what a great comeback, and so cool, like so stylized on the hoverboard thing, and he's like fighting and then rewinding, fighting it, and how scary those like robot things were, and how like just you see how potent they are. So him being able to like, they were a great adversary for like how to get past in, because they're so fast and stuff.
Yeah, they posed a way bigger threat than I thought they were going to.
Yeah. So that, and they pretty much like, they just, all those folks who were doing really well in their individual fights and everything, just every single fight just became null and void, because they just in an instant were all overwhelmed by those robots. Like, you know, like just every single one was overwhelmed. So, yeah, for him to come in, because it was like, oh, this is hopeless. Who's going to save the day? And it's like, here comes Echo, sort of thing. And he just, I loved that he was the one that was able to sort of like bring us that victory, and also Jace, like, because Jace was, and even though Echo bought him the time, sort of thing, but Jace was in there, and for all his bumbling and all the harm he caused and all that sort of stuff, he did sort of manage to talk Victor down. You know, like it made a difference, and he said the right thing, and I don't know what the right thing was, and I don't understand it. And I don't understand their last conversation. Like, you know, I do in a sense, but it was all very kind of like high level sort of stuff.
Lots of heady,
to me it was
magic talk there.
Yeah, heady magic talk, and high morals, and, you know, the discussion about right and wrong, and humanity, and personal autonomy, and responsibility, you know, all of that stuff, like what's it all mean, sort of thing. But it was cool, and like it was epic. And sometimes epic is something that I just don't understand, but it was suitably epic, and I was in awe of it anyway, sort of thing. So I thought that was a really cool sort of ending, and like I thought it was fitting that they kind of like were together, and then, you know, and it's one of those things. It's like that could have been them dying going inside that thing, or like, will they be back somehow, or whatever. Like it's cool to and I'm not worried about not knowing. Like, I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's a bit ambivalent. It could be the end, it could not be, but that's enough closure for me. I'm like, that's cool.
Totally.
And if I never get any more Arcane, or even if something falls through and they never make any more of these shows, totally cool. I've got my own head canon that I'm not even decided on yet, but I've got, you know, I can ponder it, you know, in future. I can just be going back, oh, wouldn't that be cool if that happened, or whatever. And sort of a similar thing, like going back to your predictions, like you said you thought Powder or Jinx would save the day, sort of thing, and she sort of got her chance to do that. And Vi didn't have to die this time. It wasn't Vi dying, but Powder sort of like saving or Jinx saving the day, and falling down that shaft and exploding and stuff. But have you seen any discussion online about that at all, or what did you think about that? Like, because I feel like their storyline, I really loved where we got to in that middle point. But kind of their place in this battle, they, apart from Jinx coming in and kind of like saving the day and being like a second chance for the good guys, Vi's part in that, I feel like she kind of gets lost in it, and she doesn't really play a very, I can't really remember the things that she does, but all of what she's trying to do kind of gets undone because it's all about defending that tower and the laser weapon they've got or whatever. And then they kind of do, and they blow up that thing, and then it's empty. So it was all for nothing. Like Vi's part in that thing kind of all feels like what she was fighting for kind of was, they got outplayed, and it was, they were never going to save anything. So, and then they have that battle with their family up the top, and essentially they lose, and Vander of all people like is the one that like basically defeats them and stuff. Yeah. It kind of felt unsatisfying. But then I just interested to hear what your thoughts are about that, like our because I think you were saying that's kind of your favorite characters and storyline as well, right? Like in terms of its place in the story, like I'm really satisfied with the ending of what happened in the world of Arcane and stuff. But what did you think about their storyline?
I feel satisfied with their storyline and how it ends with this fight. But I feel that it is very removed from everything. They know, both of the sisters know Caitlyn. I mean, Vi obviously particularly well, and then Jinx through Vi. So they're both close with Caitlyn, and I feel like if it wasn't for Caitlyn being present, neither of the sisters would have any reason to be there, because I don't think Ambessa's on their radar.
No, not at all. Well, they sort of meet her like I think Vi knows about Ambessa through the early days when, you know, she's teaming up with the soldiers and stuff, and she's in Caitlyn's, so she knows her there, but again, not really on, she doesn't like her sort of thing, because she's a person in power and isn't out for the good of the, because Vi kind of just is more just caring about the people of Zorn and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And then obviously she realizes she's up to no good when she comes in to that little peacenik village, and they fight there. But yeah, you're right, like there's not, you know, it's not really, I agree with you, like they don't really have a place in that battlefield, and even when they are there, their fights don't feel like they're really that consequential to the overall. Apart from, I mean, Jinx is consequential because she kind of brings another wave of troops in to help sort of thing. But even then, it's like she kind of is just kind of doing it because Echo must have just convinced her, and she decided, why the heck not? Like she's, you know, she's not. Why should she care about all these like pilt over people and stuff, like, especially when she's just lost Isha and like, so yeah, it kind of felt a bit off. But an interesting thing that sort of changes things up for me about how I feel about it is that I saw a lot of people online, and apologies, I mean, we've spoiled the whole thing by now, so I don't think anyone's worried about spoilers, but I saw a lot of people online point out, because obviously you meant to, well, I don't think you meant, depending on what happens, but like we see her fall down the thing and she explodes and it's blah, blah, blah. She sacrificed herself, saved Vi. She's done a final act of good sort of thing, right? But people point out that a lot of people really believe that Jinx is not dead. So have you seen any discussion about that, or people talking about that at all? Or
I haven't seen any discussion, but I feel like
you don't see a body, right? So
you don't see a body, and
people falling down a well could come back as a clone army, and you know,
we all know falling down large shafts is not, your health is fine at the end of the day. I do love the very final moment of the show, which is those quick little frames where it says the end, but it says it in a very scattered Jinx graffiti font, and it's on the screen for I think only a couple of frames. And I got the sense that was the show maybe saying Jinx is still around, whether it's in spirit or in a much more physical way. But I didn't see any discussions about her being alive.
Well, so one of the things we remember at the very beginning of the show, one of the things that very first scenes is Powder looking up at, and I think it's this shot maybe with this airship coming in over the city, and
Oh.
they're in that thing, and they look up and she sees the airship and she says, one day I'm going to fly one of those things. And the very last shot, I think probably where the end comes up over the top, is a shot of a ship just traveling out in the air, right? Shit like that. And so what folks have said is that in that explosion shot, if you freeze frame, there's a flash of light, that like a little flick that goes out from the explosion down that well, like a little flick that comes out of like blue or pink energy or whatever, that is the same whenever we see her shimmer and go like super speed, we see her get this glow about her as she's shimmering around the place. So we see this flick that heads out as the thing explodes, and then we see later Caitlin looking through her records and looking through those blueprint schemata sort of things of that shaft, and seeing that there are lots of these little exhaust ports, and it frames in on that. It frames in not just on the shaft, but these exhaust ports heading out from the exhaust ports out to the outer side of the city. And she kind of gets this smile on her face, and then like looks at Vi or something like that. And then we see her and Vi somewhere, maybe on a ship or maybe something, saying like, oh, and they're together, and she says like, oh, you in this with me or whatever, and she says like, yeah, or whatever. Like, so I think the impression is that Caitlin tells Vi, hey, I think Jinx is still alive, and maybe they are going on a mission to go find her. And then we see this airship that has obviously left the city and is just flying out in thingy, and that's Jinx. She's escaped, and she's just, you know what, she's got nothing else to live for in this place, but she's off on her new adventure, like starting afresh.
That's really cool. I like that.
So it, like, I don't know if that's 100%, like it all of those things together seem to be like, okay, that's obviously what's happened, right? But I didn't pick up on it. I had to have people point it out on the internet for me, sort of thing. But that is now my headcanon. Like, I'm happy with that. And again, I don't care where she goes next or whatever. Like, I don't even particularly want to see that story. I would rather see, because that's a happy enough, like that's a happy enough ending for. I don't think these guys are going to get any happier an ending.
Yeah.
I think anything else that happens to these guys is going to be worse, right? So I like to just think, okay, that's a cool, like, okay, the people I cared about the most, like, lived through this, and off they go, sort of thing. And they're going to have whatever adventures, and I just hope that they go well, sort of thing. And I would rather see new characters in Noxus or something like this, and a whole new thing to get invested in, sort of thing. That last scene is a floating airship. Yeah, there we go, which Jinx wanted to ride. It's JF saying, yeah. So
even though there's a lot of open-endedness, nothing felt incomplete. Nothing felt like you didn't tell me blank.
Yeah, so, because even like Heimerdinger sort of like seemingly exploded or whatever, disappeared, or you could maybe hope that he's just been warped somewhere else. It seems like he kind of knew something bad was going to happen to him, sort of thing. But we see the council, like, we don't know what's going to happen with that, but we've got some people that might be able to make a difference on the council now, like Savika and stuff, and maybe there's a bit of a bridge being built there. Jason, Victor, who knows what's happening with them? Are they gone? Are they not? At least if they are gone, at least in their final moments, they were able to come back together again and do an act for good, which they were always aiming for, right? What was their goal? Was to make the world better for people, and what better thing to do than like not make the world end? So,
yeah, totally.
So that was cool, sort of thing, and so holy moly! But what a ride! Like, I agree. I think, like, and it was like an epic fight and an epic thing, sort of thing. But like the story for me sort of peaked at that thingy. But I still really appreciate. I'm so appreciative that I feel like they still stuck the landing. Like, my high point was still the middle of the season, but it didn't end in disaster and like, oh, I hated that ending. It just wasn't as emotionally important for me as what happened in the middle. Like, So. I guess maybe should we talk about thoughts or final thoughts or?
Yeah, totally. I think my biggest final thought to all of it is because of the fact that the first time I heard about it was through students of mine, through kids and teens and stuff like that. I love the idea of this next generation of kids having, for lack of a better term, their Star Wars or their Lord of the Rings trilogy. And while I personally wouldn't put Arcane on par with either of those, even though I think it's an excellent show, I love the idea of them having just a big piece of just epic storytelling that blows the minds of a whole generation, that they can look back on when they're in their 20s and 30s and be like, Arcane was my childhood. Arcane, you know, taught me, it inspired me to be a writer. It inspired me to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It's just one of those
right?
things. Yeah. It's very generationally inspirational. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the future now benefits from this, because that is something that we have been, I think, in pop culture and movies and film, in movies and TV, that we've been missing a little bit, is the idea of these big benchmark original stories coming out and changing the way a generation experiences either cinema or TV. And I think we got
all been
close.
iteration.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We got close with Stranger Things. But
I was just gonna say, like, oh,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, even Stranger Things is kind of like, it is, but it's also a lot of, especially what got us into it was kind of relying on the nostalgia thing of all the 80s stuff we got. So we're still, in a sense, iteration. It did it in a really good way. But yeah, so go ahead. Like,
yeah, I like totally agree 100%. Like, I love Stranger Things a bunch, but it is building, it's more banking off the nostalgia that the adults have, and the kids are like, oh, this is fun because there's demogorgons, neat. But this is something that can really truly be theirs. And I love that about it. I think that's just terrific. We need more. We can't just keep making legacy sequels. We need new original big stories to become new franchises and inspire people down the line. So that's what I love about Arcane.
Yeah, and as a source of inspiration, it's a really good model. Like, it's storytelling to me done right. Like it's characters and story first. Like, all of the things that I also really love about it, like the spectacle and everything, is kind of like the dressing around, but just like they really nailed, like you said, like making us feel what understanding the motivations and the nuances of so many things, exploring so many themes on top of themes and topics, and like microcosms and macrocosms, all of that stuff. Like, it did a really good job of doing it. I can't articulate how they did it, but I kind of understand that they did it. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
And for kids who are going to be inspired to be the next generation of storytellers and stuff, it's great that they've got that as an example of how to do it. Just such a good, just so memorable. It just came out of nowhere for me. I had no real background in the story investment or anything like that, but it just, through its storytelling, it drew me in, and I'm going to remember it forever, sort of thing. Like, it's just love it. Hi to Nelly Nell as well, who popped in there as well. Wishing us a happy holidays. Same to you, my friend. So thank you for coming on this ride, Andrew. It's been a blast. It's been really cool. And join us for future episodes where we're going to start playing League of Legends online, and we're going to live stream our games. It's going to be a lot of fun. That would be horrible. I'm so bad at video games that no one would want to watch it. But
yeah, especially online ones. You put me in an online game, I'm just like, control what?
And that's funny. I have no interest in going and playing the game at all. But if they're back with another TV series, I will be there with bells on. But
for sure,
just fantastic. So I've had a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun discussing it and just sort of like gushing about it, and talking about, I had no idea what that was about, but it was cool. Just a lot of fun. And thank you to all the folks who have helped us along in the comments, and thank you to JF and Sin and others in the comments over the last couple of videos, helping us break it down and giving some really good insights into sort of what the story makers were maybe trying to get across and that sort of thing as well. So Lois plays League of Legends. Oh, sorry, I thought it said Lois. Sorry, Lols. Play League of Legends and use Jinx and Echo. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, like what a hero Echo is,
Yeah.
coming in and sacrificed his happiness to come in and really did save the day, sort of thing. And the contribution of Heimerdinger, like that wouldn't have happened without Heimerdinger sacrificing himself as well. And that, so good. Such
Coming
a good
on
show.
these live streams with you and talking about it with you and everybody in the chat has made me, like, I appreciate season 2 more now than I did when we started this video 2 hours ago or whatever. Right? I have just a better understanding and a better appreciation of the little things that I totally missed that I get to experience again without having to rewatch the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and certainly going back, like being blown away by season 2, that middle arc, and then starting and going back and watching season 1 again. It really, it starts to, it's like when you, again, Game of Thrones, it's like when you read Game of Thrones the first time, oh, it's great book. And you go back and read it the second time and you see how well he sets everything up is just mind blowing, and setting up all the little like prophecies and all the little things that he never really reveals until right late and stuff like, all those little like theories and stuff like that. Amazing. And I feel, going back and watching this, like the way they sort of keep returning to characters, even minor characters, like seeing Savika's arc through it all and that sort of stuff is just, really, really good. And like you said, it's it rewards repeated viewing and discussion and just there's so much to pull apart, and it's really, really good. So I have had a lot of fun.
Same.
Should we talk about like what we're doing next? Because I'm really excited. Just before we go, to give you a chance to tell us about, you obviously don't have to reveal all yet, but I'm very excited because you've got a Santa Claus, or sorry, I shouldn't say a Santa Claus, but you've got a Christmas themed game, a playthrough coming up. I'm very excited to see what that is, because you are so creative with your themes and stuff like that. I loved your Oscar Isaac Variety Hour one. All things lead to Oscar Isaac, kind of like a Kevin Bacon sort of thing. And we could do a Marvel United Kevin Bacon thing, because he's all throughout the MCU and comics and stuff, isn't he? Like
yes, he is.
He was in that Guardians of the Galaxy special, and I think he was he
Sebastian Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw, yeah. But then you did the Christmas turkey battle, which I was very happy to see you finally got your revenge on him, not on camera, but you were able to take him down. That was awesome.
That's right. I wish I was filming it, but Vulture finally fell, and man, I almost didn't believe it. I'm like, did I win?
That's like sometimes, like I think the last couple, like I played that game against was it White Widow or someone, and it ended really quick, and I was like, wait, did I get this right? Like, what massive rule have I forgotten, sort of thing. So, but I thought I'd give you a chance to share like what you've got coming up, and in particular maybe when you're planning on dropping that video too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one is, I think I have it set to drop on Christmas Day on the 25th.
Right. Okay.
So I know first thing in the morning, nobody's running to their tree. They're running to watch that game. But yeah, it is. When originally I had a different thing planned for the theme, and then this other idea hit me, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have to do this. And I went and I like looked through the characters again. I'm like, does this work? And it did. So it absolutely 100% needed to be done. And I threw out the old idea. I don't even remember what the old idea was anymore. So I'm really looking forward to doing that, because it kind of takes something that's near and dear to my heart and represents it through United. And the game ended up representing it in a really cool way that I wasn't expecting.
Oh, so the actual playthrough kind of played out in that really cool way. Yeah. I love it when that happens. Yeah.
Oh, and it worked out. Like I couldn't have planned it better. Like it just, I just played as the turns came, and it ended up doing it better than I ever could have attempted if I was staging it. So I was like, yes, this is great. And then on Boxing Day, I have another deep dive. It's the Deadpool one, I believe. The Deadpool dive is coming out on Boxing Day. So that's nice. This week.
Excellent. And I love like what you're talking about there, and I think Marvel United somehow with its abstract system and stuff just has a knack for like doing this quite often, is like things play out in that game, and especially like last turns and things like that play out in such a cool thematic way so often. And I know Martin was sharing in the Discord about some game he played, I think when he played Dave's new Nemesis character, and that things played out so thematically at the end, and I just love that. And the thing I hate the most is when I play a game like that as a practice game or something, and it's not on camera, or I'm like, I'm never going to be able to like recreate the magic of this particular game. But then usually what happens is the game on camera is just as good in a different way, sort of thing. And that's just because of Marvel United. But I also hate when I've done a really like it's such a cool series of things have happened, and then the camera dies on me, or I realize that I've forgotten like a massive rule that isn't just like, I've made a mistake. Oh, well, that had a bit of an impact on the game, but whatever, keep going. But it's like, no, it really just showcases the way that villain works in a really wrong way.
Yeah.
And I can't abide like keeping it. I hate when I have to like let go of one of those games, and it's like, but yeah, it's a great sort of thing. But yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, so that's okay. So Christmas Day, I'll have to. So, but that for us, that'll be probably the next day, Boxing Day.
Yeah, I guess that's true for you. It'll be Boxing Day.
So, all right, kids, get out of here, kids. MU ending is thematic because heroes are working together to punch left and right. Yeah, that's right. It always ends up in the fight, sort of thing, doesn't it? Like Arcane. Going back to that point I said about Arcane, like, it's kind of strange that this nuanced show is all ending in battle, but then really the whole game the whole show is a showcase of a game just about fighting each other, sort of thing. So I guess it's always going to end that way.
Yeah.
So it's not that surprising. But yeah, so and here, so like I was saying before, I'm going to later tonight, so probably in the morning for you guys, I'm going to be doing that draw for the Santa Claus mini and rules from Minis from Mars, and then I've got the gameplay of that filmed a couple of days ago, and so I'm going to drop. I was kind of wondering when I'm going to drop that. So I think I'm going to drop that. I think tonight. I think I'll drop it maybe after doing the live through the play or the live stream or whatever, because that will probably be Christmas Eve for most folks, or maybe will I drop it on Christmas morning, like here in Australia? I don't know, but I'll drop it in the next day or two, sort of thing, for those folks as well. So we've got a couple of Christmassy themed battles. So
nice.
Mine will be showcasing that Santa from Minis from Mars, and I cannot wait to see what Andrew's got as well. So folks, check him out. Should be fun. So yeah. But anyway, well, thank you everyone and just to drop here again, Black Rose originally law is that they are involved somewhere in all major events. Oh, so across that world.
Okay, cool.
So maybe that'll be a thing that is a tie through for all the different worlds they visit in this.
I like
thing.
that.
They might pop in and out again. Yeah. So we may never fully get the full explanation of what they're all about and that sort of stuff. They might always be this mysterious thing on the fringes or something, which would be kind of cool. So yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, yeah, thank you guys. Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us again. Thanks for coming on this ride and committing the time and effort to watch the show and then find some time to come and join us here. Looking forward to all sorts of collaborations, maybe in the new year as well, and hope we can get together for some playthroughs, all that sort of stuff, and discussions about shows. So if you see something, Andrew, that you want to have a discussion about, and the folks at Digital Charcuterie are busy, you can hit us up,
awesome.
or if you want to, because I also realize that we've done this on my channel, sort of thing. So if you want to do the next one on yours or whatever, just to sort of share the love and the views around and that sort of stuff, we can do that. But yeah, all sorts of fun stuff to come on our channels, hopefully, and we'll have a fun new year, and hopefully we'll get at some point, although it's realistically with what happened this year, we might be looking at the following year, but hopefully we might be able to be doing a whole bunch of DC stuff.
Yeah, next fall would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. Yes, at least we know now, right? At least we can sort of temper our expectations. And I think I'm really excited about that Superman stuff too.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy, that I'm not a big fan of DC really, but that has piqued my interest. It looks like a lot of fun. So yeah, very cool. So, all right, well, thank you very much, guys. We'll catch you on the next one, and yeah, Meeple Monkey out. And what is it? We'll hope the wait is a whole lot shorter and a whole lot sweeter.
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you later.